call the special session of the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District Board meeting. Roll call, please, Bev.
Chairman Kavanaugh.
Here.
Board Member Dickey.
Here.
Board Member Brown.
Here.
Board Member Yates.
Present.
Vice Chair Hansen.
Here.
Board Member Elke.
Here.
And Board Member Leger.
Here.
Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Consideration of approving the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District Board meeting minutes of June 5th, 2014. No staff report.
Mayor, so moved.
Second. Any speaker cards on this
No,
item?
Chairman.
Can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman 7-0.
Consideration of resolution EMCFD 2014-03, levying upon the assessed valuation of the property within the district subject to ad valorem taxation, a certain sum upon each $100 of valuation sufficient to raise the amounts estimated to be required in the annual budget, specifically for the purpose of paying principal and interest upon bonded indebtedness, all for fiscal year ending on June 30th, 2015. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, again, the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District was formed by the Town Council in 1996 for the purpose of constructing infrastructure for the Eagle Mountain subdivision. Town Council serves as the governing board for the annual expenditures for the district, for the repayment of those bonds for that infrastructure. This year's levy, we've already approved the budget at the previous Town Council meeting, and it requires now you adopt the levy for that, and it's, again, it's estimated to be $1.60 per 100 assessed valuation for those properties that are within that specific district of Eagle Mountain Community. I just want to point out that it was $1.84 last year, so it's gone down.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay, if not, can I get a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution EMCFD 2014-03, levying upon the property owners of Eagle Mountain Community a levy of $1.60 per $100 of assessed valuation for the purpose of payment of principal and interest on bonded indebtedness.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any speaker cards on this item?
No, Chairman.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman 7-0.
Okay, get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. I'll open the special session of the Cottonwood Maintenance District Board. Roll call, please, Bev.
Chairman Kavanaugh.
Here.
Board Member Yates.
Present.
Board Member Leger.
Here.
Board Member Brown.
Here.
Vice Chair Hansen.
Here.
Board Member Elke.
Here.
Board Member Dickey.
Here. Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Consideration of approving the Cottonwood Maintenance District Board meeting minutes of June 5th, 2014. There is no staff report. May I get a motion, please?
Mayor, so moved.
Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman 7-0.
Thank you. Consideration of Resolution CMD 2014-03, assessing upon the individual lots and parcels within the district a certain sum sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be required in the annual budget to provide funds for maintenance of certain pedestrian areas, parking, and parkways, all for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2014, and ending June 30th, 2015. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, actually the Cottonwoods Maintenance District Board. The Cottonwoods Maintenance District was formed by the Town Council in 1999 for purposes of improving common areas of the Cottonwoods subdivision. That's located over on Grandy and Saguaro Boulevards. The maintenance of the common areas, the annual cost was repaid through an annual property tax assessment of approximately $83.15 per property for the year, this past fiscal year. It is the same for this year to raise $4,823, which would be $83.15 per property owner levied for each one. The money goes for landscaping contract cost as well as established a reserve amount for future exterior wall maintenance.
All right, thank you, Ken. Questions or comments from board members? Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Can I get a motion to accept?
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution CMD 2014-03 levying upon the property owners of the Cottonwood Maintenance District a levy of $83.15 each for the purpose of payment of the annual maintenance of the common areas.
Mayor, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman, 7-0.
All right, now I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. All right, now we will go into our regular meeting. Open the regular meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Roll call, please, Bev.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Councilmember Yates,
Present.
Councilmember Leger. Here. Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson. Councilmember Elke. Councilmember Dickey.
Okay, thank you. We have a proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month. Designation of July 2014 as Park and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the town of Fountain Hills, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas the town of Fountain Hills recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved by I, Linda Kavanaugh, Mayor of the town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, that July 2014 is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the town of Fountain Hills. Okay. And our second report is, our rotation of vice mayor position to Councilman Cecil Yates, pursuant to Fountain Hills Town Code Section 222, which requires every elected council member to serve as vice mayor during the member's elected term. So this is, I'd like to thank.
The pressure.
She works so hard. I want to thank Councilwoman Hanson for being vice mayor, filling in for me when necessary, providing support, and now we pass it on to Vice Mayor Yates. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. May I have the gavel? Just kidding.
Okay, the first is my review. The next section It's summertime, so not too busy this time. First, I'd like to talk to you about the fact that I attended the 14th Annual Pakistani Information and Cultural Organization Lunch and reconnected with our friends who bring us the Kite Festival each year. I'm happy to report that the Kite Festival in Fountain Park has been scheduled for Sunday, March 21st. Let's hope we get a nice windy day to make that event a success. I had a great meeting with the Plaza Fountainside Merchants Group. That meeting was very positive and productive. A large part of the success of our plaza is the dedication of the business owners there to support each other and to support the town. I was invited to sit on the resolution subcommittee meeting for the League of Cities and Towns. We had that meeting on Tuesday where we discussed all the resolutions submitted by the municipalities, and we made recommendations of which ones would go on to the full committee of all 91 mayors at the League conference in August. Any resolutions that make it out of that committee will be sponsored by the League for possible legislation in the coming session. I thought the League did a great job researching all the submitted resolutions and being able to answer all of our questions, and we did have a lot of questions and comments at that meeting. All of those comments and concerns will be passed along with our recommendations for the entire committee to consider. Thank you. Now we will go, let's see, next is an update by our Councilwoman Ginny Dickey regarding the recent Maricopa Association of Governments Regional Domestic Violence Council meeting held June 5th, 2014. Councilwoman Dickey sits on the MAG for domestic violence.
Thank you. Yep, we met on the 5th and at the MAG headquarters there. We just did our annual report, but it wasn't quite done yet, so we didn't, we had to table it. It wasn't approved, but when it comes out, we'll be sharing that with everybody. We continue to work on our statewide and regional coordination strategies for domestic violence protocols with law enforcement. The plans for the annual training last year, I don't know if you remember, I went with Carol Comito when she was on Public Safety Commission. And outreach this year, it'll be in August. October is always Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that's when their outreach event will be. And I think Fountain Hills is going to be recognized at whatever the event is because we're one of the 19 municipalities and and groups that adopted the Start by Believing resolution that we did maybe a few months ago. Also, human trafficking is going to be on the agenda for the September meeting. And I think, Mayor, you talked about this too, the relevance to the Super Bowl and whenever there's any kind of a big event like that. I also told you that we were all interviewed by the chair and the vice chair, calling all the members to just kind of see what everybody was thinking, what's the roles and that sort of thing. And there were a ton of comments, and that'll all be compiled. It did lead me to think a little bit about what happens, when I cycle off, and that I would ask maybe the council to consider what you might want to do at that point, because it's part of what we're trying to figure out. What role do like an elected person have on there as opposed to someone who might be in the field? So, like for example, somebody from CARE, Fountain Hills, or even from the Public Safety Commission who might actually be out there and can see directly the protocols that work. I'm not sure if this is something that we would want to do, but maybe as we go forward towards November, we might think about how we would either want to fill that role or have maybe somebody that's more in that line of work, because they could certainly know what works and be a good liaison between the region and the city. If you have any questions, of course, just ask me, or there's a lot of stuff on the website too.
Are they going to be asking your committee concerning the Super Bowl? Are they going to be asking you to do any work with them concerning this? Because I know this is a big issue with them, but where are they reaching out to get some of this help?
Well, Mayor, I'm not sure what, action as far as it's, the governor has the task force, and I think there's a Cindy McCain task force, and there have been a lot of presentations in a lot of areas, because you even came to that one that was here, because there's terminology and things there that people just aren't familiar with. I mean, you think human trafficking, you really don't think of the United States, and it's so amazing that it's so prevalent. So I don't know exactly what it will be on that agenda in September, and there's so many people at these meetings that are in these groups and are advocates and all of that. So and a lot of police and a lot of law enforcement are at these meetings too.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councilwoman Dickey? Okay. All right, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for sitting on that board for us. Presentation by Robert Bennett, Republic Services General Manager, on the 3-year status report. Hi.
Thank you. How we doing?
Welcome.
Beautiful day outside. So Mayor Kavanaugh, council members, citizens, thank you very much for giving me the time to come here again. I was here 2 weeks ago. Just to give you an update of the last 3 years of this public-private partnership that we've got with you for your waste management services. So I want to start out with just a brief overview. Since July of 2011, we've actually picked up 20,000 tons of waste from your residents. In addition to that, we've picked up 6,000 tons of recycled products, okay? Things that did not go into our landfills. They were diverted. So, you know, as part of this overview, what I'd like to talk about is the benefits and what you guys have done. And I'll tell you, as I'm new to this area, I'm using this partnership as an example to a lot of the other customers that I've got for how to set up a private public partnership. One of the very first objectives is how do we offer a good rate to your residents for their services. And I went over a lot of the costing that we saw as we were coming in, and right now we're about 30% savings for your residents versus what you were paying before on average. One of the things I will note there is that you had a number of different competitors that came in, and they were at rates that were all over the place. Some of them were a little bit lower, but for the vast majority of them were higher. But, you know, 30% savings is a great story to tell your citizens. The other thing that I want to note is, you know, part of this contract at the 3-year mark, there is a price increase, and that was set up in the contract. But for your residents, we're talking about 14 cents. That is an amazing story to tell as far as if you look out at business today and even go into the grocery store, how much is bread versus 3 years ago, or milk? The other thing I would tell you, just looking at the rates, is there happens to be a very large municipality directly west of here that is charging its residents for the exact same service that you're providing, $27 a month versus your $11.44. That is absolutely phenomenal, and again, I use this as an example with a lot of my other customers. The other benefit that we've had in this program is just reducing the amount of traffic on the roads by reducing the number of haulers. So before this program started, there were 10 routes per day that were coming in from all the different companies 5 days a week. That totals 50 different route days. And by us setting this up in the most efficient way that we can, we are now 5 route days, 4 days a week, reducing that traffic by 50%. So this has a number of benefits. You know, one, infrastructure. Our trucks, fully loaded, weigh give or take about 40,000 pounds. You run those trucks over your roads over and over and over again, over time those roads are going to wear out a lot faster than setting up a program like this where there's just a lot less traffic. The other one, which is one of my priorities, is resident safety. The less trucks on the road, less amount of time, we have less chances of there being an incident, especially when you have multiple companies that are all running different routes in different directions and passing by each other. You know, you've reduced that risk significantly, which for a company is our very top priority, is safety. The third benefit by having a single hauler just is the reduction in the carbon footprint. As you can imagine, all the different trucks coming in, the diesel fuel being burned, that's a huge deal. And I don't know how many people follow diesel fuel, but that's a huge expense today. And we've reduced that in our carbon footprint by 50% by going to a single hauler, okay? Which helps us because it helps us keep your rates low, but it also helps the environment. Another area that this partnership is very beneficial, because we are a single supplier, you know, you're our customer. And, you know, as you can imagine, we're a large company. We get calls all the time for donations. We do a lot. But because you're a customer, you guys get, you know, the front seat there with donations. And I've just listed a couple of them here. But, you know, this is a big deal for us to be a part of the community and not just the business side. And this is something, you know, we're going to continue. You know, as you guys have opportunities come up, I'm the one that you call. So please feel free at any time to let me know when you've got things going on that you need some help with. I spoke a little bit about landfill diversion, and I think this is one of the opportunities that we have in the time to come. And we track this every single month, and on average, we are diverting about 25% of your waste from the landfill into the recycling system. And very briefly, the way that works is we take those recyclables to a company that has a machine that sorts it all out, bales it, and we sell those commodities on the open market. And where this becomes very important today is that landfills are getting harder to build, and a lot of them are running out of life. So diversion just isn't about the ecological side, it's also good business. And one of the areas that I really do want to focus on is how can we get this diversion higher? And you know, you've heard some other places talk about 40%, that's kind of our goal. You know, right now you're at 25%, so you're ahead of the power curve. But how do we get to the next level with that? And that's something that we can work together over time to try and figure out. One of the ways that we are working on this is with the Republic Rewards program. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, this is the first time in the country. I'm now presenting it to a couple other customers that I've got to include some school districts. But you know, this is to us very successful because we get to give back to you as a community, but also it helps this diversion objective that we've got. Another area that as I was discussing, I'd like to see more participation here. You know, we had about 10.7% of the folks that actually could participate vote, and we're putting together the next round of this program, and we would love to see more citizens get involved because the projects that take place are going to benefit you. But that being said, as you know, the winter is the greening of downtown. I really look forward to seeing how that project plays out, and I'm going to use this as an example. So a couple other things to cover. One of the things that was put into the contract, which I think for your citizens is a very big deal, is the free walk-up service. And I don't know how many people actually know that that's the case here. But you know, typically we do charge for walk-up service on the routes. But because of the population here and the residents, there are some people that do need help bringing their cans down. And we actually offer that for free. And we do have a number of customers that are on the list that we provide that service to. You know, again, in the name of customer service, this is absolutely phenomenal. And in the name of safety, it's absolutely phenomenal because our folks are trained to do this. At the end of the day, as much as I like to believe we've got great systems, we run a very solid business, I'm not the one that picks up the trash every day. I'm not the one that gets it done. So I do want to take this opportunity to highlight your actual service providers, the individuals who get up every morning at 3 o'clock, hit the road, pick up the waste. Joe Chapman, Keith Swafford, Louis Sanchez, Ron Haggard, and Steve Mendoza. Combined with Republic Services, they've got about 30 years experience. Industry-wide, because a number of these folks came from some other companies, we've got over 50 years of experience taking care of your citizens. And we have a very, very simple standard where we try to set up the same drivers on the same truck on the same route every day so that we provide excellent service. And I sincerely hope that we can continue to do that, and I will open it up for any questions.
Yeah, the walk-up service, how do you let the residents know that that's available?
Yeah, that's a great question because we do have a number of residents that do that, and one of the things we were talking about was we've been sending out postcards, but maybe doing the phone call, we can do an automated phone message that lets people know that that's an option for them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's something that's been on our list, and I got to say, Raymond communicates phenomenally, and that's something that we've been talking about.
Okay. We also have a volunteer coordinator that has lists of people that are already getting, you know, rides because they're disabled, and she might also be able to provide you with additional list of people you can
be great.
contact. Good. And my other question was, I think we had discussed at a meeting that we had about the possibility of recycling in the park. We talked about that it wasn't practical to do everything, but we might be able to do just the bottles, cans with the specialized trash receptacle with the small openings. Where are we
Yep.
on that?
So I actually had a meeting today with the supplier that could provide those, and we're going actually as a company, big picture, on a complete rebranding effort to try and drive recycling, not just here, but everywhere. So as soon as I have, right now I've got the initial sketches, as soon as I have those done, we can sit down again and go over how we get those out in the park.
All right.
That one's actually relatively simple.
Good, great, thank you. Any questions here? Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. Robert, I have to admit, the service has been excellent at my house, and I truly appreciate it. Your drivers are courteous, considerate, and I see them out of their truck picking up debris. I mean, they truly do a good job, and I personally appreciate that. And I do have one question. I'm seeing natural gas trucks around the country, and I know that it'll be in a cycle. How many years will you be before you get into a cycle of natural gas trucks?
So 2 weeks ago, I just finished putting in a natural gas facility in my lower Buckeye location. And between now and August, I will have 30 natural gas trucks on the road. I actually cover 3 locations, so I've got 150 trucks that go out every day. So they are coming, just a matter of when. And it's business right now. It's a lot cheaper than diesel.
Well, we love Buckeye a lot, but tell us about Fountain Hills. When do you think we might be in the cycle with?
Within the next 2 years. We've made obviously a huge investment, millions of dollars to put this CNG refueling facility. The next step is I've got to get it in the Cave Creek location, which services you, and then Mesa. So, I'm guessing within 2 years, but, some of that has to do with when I can get that approved.
Certainly will. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman Dickey?
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. You worked so hard to try to get that MAG Peaks Award. And I know we were trying to figure out, well, who beat us out, and so I figured I'd tell you because I just found out. It was the Greater Phoenix Age-Friendly Network. I think you've probably seen that. MAG has been working on that. And then there was something called Don't Let Our Air Go Up in Smoke, which was a winter no-burn campaign, and they all have like 17 or 25 partners. But as you know, we were talking about applying for the Arizona Forward, which is actually a little bit probably more in the purview of what we've been doing as far as the environment. So, and that's due the 24th of July. So, but all the work is done, I mean, that.
This one's easier.
Really, between doing that and now what you're doing. A few other things I wanted to mention. I know that Jerry Butler with the greening, several months ago, he sort of gave me a challenge on figuring out how much we were saving with the carbon footprint. So I really appreciate that you put those numbers down there. And then a lot of the other things we talked about when we first started thinking about doing curbside, through the entire town, was a goal of 30%. So we're not quite there, but at least we're pretty close. And if we got to 40%, that would be quite outstanding, unusual. The other thing I wanted to mention was the solid waste rates comparison that the city or the town of Queen Creek did with all of these surrounding towns, 15 towns or so, and Fountain Hills was at, the absolute lowest of all. The next closest one was $15 a month. So even with the 12 cents, it's, and of course, it has been frozen for the last 3 years. We haven't had to raise it at all. And you mentioned that some, obviously, the things that are so good about doing this with the air and the fuel. There was also energy, because when the diversion saves the capacity, but also, especially with like the water bottles, that's actually saving energy that you can't even imagine for the manufacturing of those bottles. I noticed, and I'm sure a lot of people noticed, the noise factor is a lot less, and the aesthetic factor too, because we had bins on our streets every day, 5 days a week. So we really appreciate that aspect of it. And the last thing was what you guys came up with, was to have the same day pickup and recycling, which was a MAG's Solid Waste Advisory Commission best practice. So you really came through for us, and we really appreciate it. And maybe we'll find ourselves at the awards ceremony for Arizona Forward, even though I don't know, maybe the mayor's going to go too, because that's the same day as MAG Regional Council. But I'm going to go to the MAG Desert Peaks Award because we were nominated, so we'll be mentioned. So that'll be awesome. Thank you so much.
Anytime, thank you.
Any other questions? No, none? Thank you, Robert.
All right, thank you very much for your business.
Okay, now we'll have an update from our Economic Development Specialist, Scott Cooper, on our Economic Development Plan.
I think we have the Community Services Director update on tourism first.
Oh, I skipped Grace. Well, I knew she was nervous, but, sorry. Update on tourism by Community Service Director Mark Mayer and Tourism Assistant Grace.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. Before I turn it over to Grace, who will take you through the report that she put together, I did want to concentrate a little bit on some information that she's going to go into more detail on, which has to do with kind of where we've been for the last 5.5 months, some of the highlights of our efforts thus far. Want to mention that we've been successful, first of all, in transferring the tourism website to the town. We've been able to update that tourism website, creating an identity called Experience Fountain Hills, visit, play, and stay, with an emphasis not only on what has been done in the past, but also a new emphasis on special events and bringing tourists into town. We've been reclassified as a DMO, which is Destination Marketing Organization through Arizona Office of Tourism, which then provides opportunities for Prop 302 funding. We've been working with Fort McDowell. We have modified our tourism website at their request and have brought that up to date. So we're continuing to work on improving that relationship. We've created an analytical database to measure the effectiveness of online marketing strategies that also will provide us a position where we can figure out what's the best use of the limited dollars that we do have. If there's areas where we're not having the effects that we would like, we can certainly look at doing something different. So it not only provides information back to us, but it also allows us to make more strategic decisions. And also, we've been able to update and distribute both the visitor's guide and the dining guide. And then last but not least, we have increased our tourism and town presence at special events. We now have it built into the contracts when there's a special event that they provide at least space for 1 and sometimes 2 tents. And then we have a town presence there, as well as the ability to talk with people from out of town, which we've done at some of our recent events, and get a feel for not only how many people are coming from out of town, but most importantly, where they're coming from and why. So with that, I will turn it over to Grace, who will take you through the presentation.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. Goodness, such a phenomenal introduction. It's my first presentation to council, so wish me luck. We'll go ahead and get started. This is just a presentation and update on our tourism program here in town. So the tourism program is a part of the Community Services Department. We have the staff and an intern. We work closely with our marketing and advertising contracts, along with working with Scott and our Economic Development Department. Our funding comes from the Economic Development Fund. It's kind of a bit of a joint venture. As far as partnerships are concerned, we strive to work closely with Fort McDowell and the Yavapai Nation and their marketing strategy of being Destination Fort McDowell. We've also taken specific strategies to work with the Arizona Office of Tourism, being classified, as Mark mentioned, as a destination marketing organization, a DMO. And as Mark mentioned earlier, that opens us up to being eligible for Prop 302 funding, our application currently being in process. So as far as our stakeholders are concerned, we're focused on working with hotels, restaurants, golf courses, Fort McDowell, of course, local businesses, the McDowell Mountain Regional Park, and then potential contracts being the Phoenix and Scottsdale CVB. So a summary from January 1st, as it's been mentioned before, the town took over tourism as of January 1st, 2014. And since then, we have created an analytical database to measure all online marketing strategies, created a growing presence in the town at town-affiliated events. We have finished renovating our tourism website and created an identity for ourselves, Experience Fountain Hills. We've been working with Fort McDowell to strengthen that relationship they've asked us on a few occasions to modify our tourism website, making sure that their logo is prominently displayed and that it is clear that there's a partnership there and we're open to working with each other. Again, we're classified as a DMO, and this makes us eligible in the state of Arizona for Prop 302 funding. Our current marketing strategy as we move forward is our newly updated website, a social media and events calendar, introducing promotions not only for ourselves, but for Fort McDowell, a creation of a presence and participation at town events, advertisements for the town in a monthly issue of Arizona Key Magazine, that's a print publication. We are continuing to be a part of the Valley Guide, another Arizona print publication. Our newly designed marketing handouts, we're looking at the creation of a calendar of events. That was a widely requested document from residents and visitors when we were out tabling. We could get them to that event, but of course they wanted to know what was next. We're adding video content and photo galleries to the website, really trying to show off what Fountain Hills is all about, what we have to offer. We have downloadable documents on the website, which is a downloadable version of our dining guide, making sure that you don't have to just stop in at our events to get a copy, but if you're looking to visit us, you can of course get one from the website. We're working with a graphic designer to create a cohesively designed branded marketing scheme. And then of course, we now have analytics on all of our social media outlets, making it very easy and very clear for us to look specifically at our strategies as well to measure how well we're doing as we try to reach out to visitors. Website and social media, our current outlets include our tourism website, experiencefountainhills.org. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn accounts. It comes straight from our new analytical software. If I can draw your attention to the top and bottom analytics, those are particularly interesting as we compare them to each other. As I mentioned, as of January, we now have software that allows us to very strategically analyze our efforts as we are on the internet, making sure that we're specific with who we're reaching out to, but we're not only making sure that the content we put out there is making it to the visitors and having a positive impact. So if you take a look at the very top schematic, we'll go in the columns from left to right, you'll see that in December of 2013, just before the town took over tourism, we had 1,276 likes. In these schematics, when they talk about likes, we're talking specifically about people who have subscribed, in essence, to our page, and they've signed up and said specifically, yes, we want to have information about Fountain Hills. At the time in December, this analysis is for the entire month. They attained 9 new likes and or subscriptions in the month. 5 people were talking about that. And when we say talking about that, we're meaning anyone who has had very specific interactions with our page. This would be likes, comments, shares, responses, very intentional interactions. Those need to be started from the viewers. And then when we, at the very far right, when we speak about total reach, we're talking about anyone who has read anything we've posted. So if they're subscribed to us, they have no interaction other than reading what we wrote. So in December, before we took over, 5 people were talking about us, and we had 187 people in the entire month reading the information that we were putting out there. If you look at the very bottom schematic, you'll see that as of April 2014, we had 1,375 likes and or subscribers, 16 new likes just within that month. 27 people were talking about us, that's up 350%. And then we have 575 people reading our posts. Again, that's with no interaction. They're just reading the information we put out there. The middle report, I think you'll find specifically interesting. I pulled that to really kind of showcase what we already know, which is that visitors love that Fountain Hills is all about events. So this specific analytic comes from our St. Patrick's Day event in 2014. In comparison to the other two, which are encompassing data of one whole month, the St. Patrick's Day analytics are pulled from the 3 days that we had events going on for the St. Patrick's Day event. So in 72 hours, roughly, we had 30 new likes. 613 people were interacting with the information we were putting on the internet. But what's even more impressive is that almost 19,000 people were reading the message that we were getting out there, and that's far beyond the people who subscribe to our information. So for social media growth, the town has taken over tourism responsibilities. Social media presence and attention has grown just in the approximately 6 months that we've been running this program. As far as likes, we're up over 7%. People talking about us is 440%, and reach has grown 200%. Our goals for this next fiscal year include, as I mentioned earlier, a focus on events. Why fix something that's not broken? You know, for the upcoming year, we have approximately 40 special events tentatively scheduled, including some potential new events. We're really looking to foster increases in event and program attendance, town recognition, and the number of out-of-town visitors. So for our marketing strategy for this next fiscal year, we're looking at continued analysis of social media and online marketing strategy, promotion of all online entities and medias. We're looking to create the promotion of a possible things to do incentive flyer. I think the common perception is that when summer comes around that there's maybe not too much to do in Fountain Hills, but that's, for those of us who love this town, we know that that's not the case. And so we're looking to send out some flyers, some information that says just because the snowbirds leave doesn't mean that folks all around the valley shouldn't still come and enjoy the town. We're looking at calendar of events updates, branded online and print media identity, deeper presence at town activities. We're looking to explore other recreation and CVB opportunities with Scottsdale and Phoenix, meeting with specific identified stakeholders, and a larger tourism presence at events. This is an example of what we talk about when we speak of having a tourism branding for all intents and purposes. We're looking to have a very recognizable identity for our tourism-specific efforts. This is a screenshot of the banners that we use across all of our online social medias. We're asking people to experience the real Arizona and to discover Fountain Hills. This next slide is a screenshot of our tourism website, experiencefountainhills.org. As Mark mentioned earlier, we're really trying to reiterate this idea of visit, stay, play. Come experience the real Arizona, come find out what Fountain Hills is all about. A funding comparison from this past fiscal year to this upcoming fiscal year, our budget has not changed. That remains at $103,000. Our AOT grant last year was just over $20,000. Anticipated AOT grant for this next year is listed at just over $21,000. The past year from the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation was $5,000, and for this upcoming year, that number is unknown. Budget estimates for the upcoming year. This is a small snapshot of some programs and some specific marketing strategies we're looking to employ over this next year. We're looking at a vendor called Infusionsoft, which will enable us to send out newsletters to those who subscribe to us online and are asking for more information about tourism-type activities. We are looking to stay with a company called Infox. They house the visitor's guide for us and work with Alliance Airport, which is the very next line item. They distribute the visitor's guide for us, and because of Alliance Airport marketing, we are able to send the visitor's guide straight to Sky Harbor. Currently, I believe we have 2 displays in baggage claim. So for website support, we will stay with our current marketing company, IDS Technology Marketing. We're anticipating around $10,000 worth of possible website maintenance and edits. Print and media campaigns, this goes back to the dining guide, the visitor's guide, a calendar of events, really just working with our graphic designer to make sure this content is up to date, and then working with our printers to print those, get them out to the festivals, tabling opportunities, the community center, anywhere that we can reach visitors and residents. And then, of course, it is listed as staff and/or an intern at just over $11,000. This totals us out for $49,700. Any questions?
All right, nice presentation, Grace.
you.
You didn't have to be nervous, that was great. Questions? Questions?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Hanson.
I don't have any questions, but very quickly, the way, this was kind of dumped in the town's lap, and I think you and Mark and Brian, before he left, did a great job of getting it up and running. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that, thank you.
And Lachey?
I was going to say Vice Mayor Hanson, it's just, I know, we finally kind of get used to saying it and then it changes, but you pretty much stole my thunder. Mark and Grace, I just want to say what a tremendous job you folks have done in the last several months putting this together. It's such a robust program, and you're really moving us kind of into a progressive direction with social media, and your metrics are just awesome. So Grace, I second what the mayor said. What a fantastic presentation. Nice job. And Mark, once again, good work with this. And Grace, you're such an ambassador for this town. I mean, could you just feel her energy? It was awesome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. I noticed when I was getting my bags, of course, in baggage, I immediately ran over to make sure our brochures were there, and there they were. They have somebody there who restocks them?
Yes,
Is
yes.
that
When we work with Alliance Airport, what happens is we have a general contract where we send a number out every month to the airport, and then at any time, should they have an influx for some reason, they generally email Mark and myself. They ask us for a few more boxes. We email Infox, and we get them sent over. So there's a set number that go every month, and then, of course, at any time, upon request, we send more.
Okay, and the racks are kind of small, though. They don't hold that many. So is there an airport volunteer or someone there, maybe one of their navigators, I don't know how they work it there, that fills the slot if those are taken?
It's not too clear to us exactly how it's done. I know that there are a few folks who work within the airport office specifically who kind of run that program. They stock that. We've been able to email back and forth, work with them closely. And so they're the folks who not only stock it, but they let us know when they're running low, when we can get them more.
I know we have a Fountain Hills resident who's a navigator, and she's always keeping her eye on that slot. When you talk about people going to our site to like it, if you post something new, all those people who liked it, do they get that post? Does that automatically go to them?
Yes, exactly. And so the way it's set up, some pages utilize what's called a fan gate. We don't. A fan gate is something that's used to kind of regulate the information. For instance, people who do use their fan gate, what happens is you do not readily get their information unless you specifically like their page. And so they're almost kind of blocked off. We don't use a fan gate. And when people do like our page, we know that when we do post something, all of those specific people get it for sure. But by not using a fan gate, we open ourselves up to any new visitors, anyone who Googles us, they look us up on the internet. All of our information is already out there. We put up no barriers to kind of keep people away or to keep the information away. That's why the St. Patrick's Day statistics are so important, because we don't use barriers like that. We open ourselves up to anyone who could possibly get that information, not just people who specifically subscribe to us.
And I know we have a Facebook page now for 4th of July that you put together.
We do, yes.
It's a good page, and I noticed it's going way up.
It is. I believe we've had just over 100 likes this week.
Okay. Yeah, so anybody who's out there, if you're on Facebook, go to our 4th of July page, go to our Fountain Hills page, and just like it, and that'll be helping us, because that goes to everybody's friends, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Vice Mayor Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my first point of order. I'd like to, no, excellent job, excellent job. Obviously, you speak the language of social media. You're very familiar with the Boost post.
Yes.
Being that you've got a decent budget for minimal investment, $5, $10, $15, you can reach 3,000 people at a pop. Obviously, you don't want to overuse that, but on some of the more, like with the 4th of July coming up, have at it, man.
Yeah.
Even spend $50 if you need to. We could probably reach an extra, 5 or 10,000 people, but I think that's tremendous, and keep going. Good job.
Absolutely. That was a brief conversation that Brian and I had before he left, with us having a very specific special event season, that it would be in our best interest to pay for those boosts when we're in the influx of special events and when we're trying to reach the largest target market and be
Absolutely.
the most effective that we can be.
Right?
Madam Mayor, it's exciting to hear you speak the language. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Councilwoman
now I'll prove
Dickey?
that I don't. When you like a page, you get the, on your feed, you'll get the pages. What's the difference between just liking, because I will see all those, and following? Like, some of these things want you to follow them, and I've never actually followed something, but I seem to be getting these things.
It's so true, and you're exactly right. When you like a page, then all of their information comes up on your personal feed. It's why I use the word subscribe, because in essence, that's exactly what you're doing. You're subscribing to something very specific that you enjoy. To be perfectly honest, I tend to acknowledge those two words tend to be a little bit different based on the specific social media you're speaking of. Like has always been very reminiscent of Facebook. That's their proven terminology. Follow tends to be something that is synonymous with Twitter. The difference being the type of interactions you have on each different social media. There's a little bit more interaction on Facebook, in essence, because of the realm of tools that you're exposed to. On Facebook, you have things in your toolbox like being able to create an event, or to have a catalog or an album of photographs that really kind of do what we're doing and show off the town and what we can do. Whereas when you follow something on Twitter, you're still subscribing in that same manner, but unfortunately you're getting small blurbs, and you don't get to ever really go to someone's Twitter page and see a complete album or see some of the more completed projects, I guess I would phrase them, as you would on Facebook. There's not as much categorization.
Mayor, just on Facebook, there's a place to push follow.
There are. That tends to be a little more synonymous with, to my knowledge at this time, with famous people, with some of those profiles that there isn't as much interaction with. You could follow Elvis.
Not right now.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Brown?
Councilman Dickey, I'm shocked that you didn't know all that. I'm just shocked.
I knew the difference between Twitter.
Mark, Grace, I just have to say that I am totally, totally pleased with everything you're doing and totally comfortable. And that is just such a huge step from where we were at a year and a half ago. And kudos to you guys, really. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. All right, I guess the word is great job, Grace. Keep going, and you and Mark seem to be working really, really well together. Thank you. Good
Thank you very
presentation.
much.
Oh, Scott, it's a hard act to follow, huh? You got to follow Grace. Update from Economic Development Specialist Scott Cooper on Economic Development Plan.
Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and members of the council. Google, 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 Twitter, Twitter, Twitter. Thank you. There's a reason why that I've tagged along with Grace a little bit on our social media and branding online. She's, I don't know if she knows the world without it, to be honest with you, so that's great. Well, I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on the Economic Development Plan. All 5 of these approaches, or strategic initiatives, if you will, are from the Economic Development Plan. These approaches are how we will achieve our 3 economic objectives, which are grow our economy, maximize our talent, and enhance our community. This is a summary from January 1 till today. Our first approach, business attraction. We've been monitoring and updating inventory of available office space. We've contacted new and building on existing relationships with our economic development partners. Updated economic development data. We've created an economic development specific website. Aside from the official town website, we have our own economic development website. And we've launched a social media presence for economic development. I've been actively involved with AAED, which is the Arizona Association for Economic Development, GPEC, and I serve on the edit committee at GPEC, which is Economic Development Directors team. I've met with GPEC staff, Arizona Commerce Authority, APS, SRP, NAI Horizon Community Contact, area realtors, developers, the Chamber, the Greater Fountain Hills Business Alliance, site selectors, and I've had the chance to speak in front of several community organizations. Our second approach is business retention and expansion. We've identified 8 targeted Fountain Hills businesses. I've listed them here for you. I've also provided a supplemental with a little more in-depth, a little detail on each one of those. I think it's pretty amazing to realize and recognize some of the strengths and the existing businesses that I don't think many know that exist in town. When you look at that list, it's pretty impressive. Some of the technology, the professional and scientific services, insurance, and even health and wellness, all those within our targets. Our third approach, entrepreneurial development. We've attended sponsors meetings for Jumpstart Biz. That's our local accelerator program here for new businesses in town looking to start. We've evaluated that program, and we recommended continued funding for next fiscal year, which was in the budget. And we've also worked with organizations, local organizations and local groups, with starting to build that relationship since I've been here with the Chamber and a few others and some realtors and some developers. It's starting to pay off. We're starting to get referrals from them. So that's been greatly beneficial as well. Our fourth approach is foundational maintenance. It's been gathering information and reviewing incentive strategies from the region. Fifth approach, locational catalysts. Certainly been encouraging infill development and redevelopment within our downtown. And now our next steps, what we're going to be working on in the future. With our first approach in business attraction, we're going to be leveraging economic development relationships for our targeting efforts. Targeted marketing messaging. Be evaluating the Economic Development Roadshow with GPEC and Arizona Commerce Authority. And feasibility studies for higher education and healthcare. For business retention and expansion next steps, going to really work to continue to build relationships with our targeted existing businesses. Look to conduct a targeted industry summit and utilize a tracking and identification software for existing industry visitation visits that I'll be doing along with Town Manager Buchanan. Our approach with the BRNE and moving forward is really, initially I wanted to identify, and then I wanted to really start building that relationship with them. I knew it would take some time, and to start initially by just more or less greeting, introducing myself before we started the official program, and that's kind of the stage we're in now. I've met with about half so far, and will within the next month meet with the other half, and then we'll start the formal process. I really want them to feel comfortable enough to call me when they've got an issue involving economic development, and hopefully to build that relationship up strong enough over the next few months and hopefully years that our office can become the focal point of contact for them when they've got an issue or they've got a question. They're looking to expand, they need a building, they've got a concern that's outside of the community, that's something they're working on. That's kind of the goal with the program. For our third approach, entrepreneurial development, and this is getting kind of key because where they're maturing is follow Jumpstart Biz graduates. for local growth opportunities. We want to make sure those companies that are working with the accelerator when they graduate, that we're there right when they graduate, to make sure that they grow within our community and not let them slip away. Our fourth approach, foundational maintenance. I'm going to further review the incentive strategies of regional partners and compose an incentive and assistant program for council's consideration, and review the town's regulatory process. Our fifth approach, locational catalyst next steps. We want to focus on the downtown open space development. It's been, like I said, it's been 5 months or so, a little 5.5 months, and it's a good time for updating with our GPEC and Commerce Authority's leads. We've received 30 leads directly from them, and they've ranged from high-tech manufacturing, bioindustry, business services, food processing, solar, financial services, and call centers, ranging in size anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 square feet, and that's existing and build-to-suit, 8 to 40 acres, and 15 jobs to up to 900 jobs. It's going to be important, certainly moving forward, and I know we had some discussion on this during budget time, to work with GPEC and to make sure that we are holding that contract accountable. And that's going to be up to me to make sure that I'm working with them so they can provide those services that that we just don't have. And leads are a part of that, but they're not the largest part, certainly. And it's up to me to make sure I'm utilizing their services to help our economic development organization grow and be successful. Any questions? Here's our social media stuff on our website, too. So.
Questions?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Lejay?
Yeah. Scott, nice job. You know, we all know it's been a tough road in terms of moving through the downturn in the economy, and things are starting to pick up, and SPAC and staff's done a really nice job at retooling, if you may, or in enhancing our economic development plan. It's nice to hear and see what you've done in terms of putting the tools in place and creating an infrastructure to move us forward. Just a question I'd like to ask you that I'm often asked is, where are we at in terms of the pipeline? Are there any projects that we have in the pipeline that aren't proprietary? Because I know oftentimes a lot of folks stop by your office and they're private about their adventures, if you may. If there's anything you could share, I think that would be very, very helpful.
Sure. Yes, that's the good news. As you're all well aware, a pipeline takes time to build and it takes time to fill. Although it's not full, it is starting to, we are starting to build some up in there. And there's nothing that I can, because of the proprietary nature, that I can announce currently. We hope to have something announced shortly. And that's the key, is to always be building that pipeline and to keep things rotating in there. And we're really starting to get to that stage now where we'll be ramping up to that and filling that pipeline up. So it has started, but I expect it to get much fuller.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilwoman Dickey?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks a lot, Scott. I wanted to tell the council that Barry Broom was on Channel 3, and he was talking about the job situation in Arizona. It has been hit really hard compared to the rest of the country and has only really rebounded, I think it was 56% or so. And one of the things that he said was that we are behind in job recovery because we're overly dependent on consumer spending, and that an educated workforce was definitely important. And Scott had given me a really good answer acknowledging that, and you can see from this plan that going forward that, you know, the whole idea of business retention and expansion has to do with, at least if you look at in town and we talk about businesses that close, have to do with having people here. So by acknowledging that, I really appreciate that. I really obviously appreciated seeing the education component in there, and we really look forward to this. I mean, thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Anything? I just have, let's see, when I attended GPEC and we talked about the Super Bowl, They were mentioning that they're going to be setting up a business-to-business network to connect the Super Bowl with other businesses who think they might have something to offer because you want them to use all local products. So considering some of the unique businesses that we have here that we didn't even know we had, just not sure that in your meetings, if they discussed that yet, because they just had discussed that at ours first thing. So maybe we could make sure that you touch base with Barry about that, and certainly we want them to utilize any business here that they could possibly need for the Super Bowl, and they are going to need a lot. So maybe we can get in on that. And the other thing I just want to mention is that when I did go to the Plaza Merchants meeting, they have mentioned that you met with them, I believe it was just the week before I was there, and they said that they were very impressed with you and the fact that you came to meet them and listen to their concerns, and they thought you had a lot of information to share with them. And they just very favorable discussion and just very impressed by you. So I wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
You did
Thank
good
you,
after
Council.
Grace.
Tough act. Thank you.
All right. Call to the public. Do we have anything?
No, Mayor.
All right. We'll move on finally to our, is that a call to the public or an agenda item? Yeah, call to the public and an agenda item. Is that today? No, you ran. I'm not gonna. You could have just stayed there.
Well, I needed my phone too. I'm so happy that we have Grace. She's awesome. We need the social media. I want to give you an example of how
Say
fast.
who you are first.
Oh, my name's Linda Bordeaux, and I'm a resident of town. They didn't know about all the different town websites we have. We have Fountain Hills Online Garage Sale, Fountain Hills Connection, Fountain Hills Food Raves and Reviews, Fountain Hills People. There's just a lot of them. And combined, there's over 4,000 people that are involved in all of those. I mean, some of us are on all of them, so it's not really 4,000 new people. But here's an example of the power of the social media. I posted what the Republic Services folks said about the walk-up fee on the driveways 29 minutes ago, and already there's 17 likes on it on Fountain Hills Connection, and a couple of people have shared it on their own pages. So I just wanted to let you guys know how amazing the social media is and how much I think it's going to do for our town. That's all. I just wanted to show you the example of how quick it works.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Anyone else?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go on to our consent agenda. We have 10 items to consider. And can I get a motion to accept all 10 as written?
So moved.
Okay, and all in favor? Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry. To do a roll, I always forget I've got to do a roll call vote for that one. Bev, roll call, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Councilmember Dickey?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown? Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Elke?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yates is not present. Mayor, 6-0.
All right, thanks.
I'm sure he'd say aye.
Yeah, he would. Regular agenda items, consideration and direction to outside legal counsel regarding resolution of Dina Galasini versus Town of Fountain Hills and State of Arizona. Andrew, please.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this was the same item that was discussed in executive session, so we're not really at liberty to have a whole bunch of a discussion right now. We just need a motion to give direction to outside legal counsel for resolution of the case as discussed, and once we get that resolution finalized, then we'll be happy to tell everybody what the resolution is.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No, Mayor.
No, okay. Any council discussion?
Just a motion.
Motion? Okay, thank you.
Move to direct outside legal counsel to take all actions and execute all documents as necessary to resolve the Galasini litigation.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 6-0.
Consideration of Resolution 2014-32 regarding an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Public Transportation Authority relating to transit services. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, as you know, staff has been working with Valley Metro review the feasibility of transit availabilities to Fountain Hills. And with that, as you know, in an April 3rd meeting, Valley Metro presented the council the final results of that study for Fountain Hills. And from that study, staff recommended that the council proceed with the Ride Choice program, which was obviously the one that was the best, that would be the best fit with the amount of money that we have available, which is $66,000 of lottery LATF 2 monies that specifically can be only spent for transit assistance. Joan McIntosh has been diligent in working closely with me and other staff members and actually taken the lead to do this, and she has a few comments regarding the transit service and the rideshare program.
Mayor Kavanaugh and council members, as Mr. Buchanan said, that Valley Metro was here on April 3rd, and the council approved their final recommendation of the Ride Choice program and directed staff and Valley Metro to come back with some more specifics about the Ride Choice program. So that's what we're going to do tonight. The Ride Choice program is a subsidized taxi cab service to Fountain Hills residents who have qualifying disabilities and or who are 65 years of age or more. Qualifying residents will receive up to $100 of taxi cab service per month. The resident will pay 25% of the cost, and the town will pay the remaining 75%. RPTA, or Valley Metro, will administer the program. Public transportation funds and the Arizona Lottery funds granted to the town will be used to subsidize this service. And how does this program work? Residents must complete a Ride Choice application. That information is needed to verify their eligibility. Once the resident is deemed eligible, Valley Metro forwards the resident's name and address to the Ride Choice contractor. The Ride Choice contractor will create an electronic account for the resident. The resident will receive a letter indicating eligibility and a Ride Choice fare card. The resident will need to pay $25 to his or her account by internet or by mail. And upon receipt of payment, the Ride Choice contractor will add $75 to that resident's account. Residents can carry unused funds forward from month to month to a maximum accumulation of $300. When the resident needs to take a trip, they'll call the company of choice, indicate they are a Ride Choice customer, and schedule their trip. At the time of the trip, the resident swipes his or her Ride Choice fare card upon entering the taxi cab and upon exiting the taxi cab. This creates a record of the beginning and ending points of the trip, along with the date and identity of the rider. Upon conclusion of the trip, the value of the trip is automatically deducted from the resident's Ride Choice account. Valley Metro and the town will establish a cap based on available funding. That'll be based on what we get with PDF funds and the Arizona Lottery funds each year. For this first year, the initial cap is set at 40 participants. Once the cap is reached, no new participants will be enrolled, but instead they'll be placed on a waiting list. And with that, we're here to answer any questions. I also have Ron Brooks from Valley Metro was here to answer any specific questions that you might have about the program.
Just about that 40, how do you decide the 40? Is that on a first-come, first-served basis?
It is on a first-come, first-served basis, yes.
Thank you. Questions?
Cassie.
I just wonder, Joan, what the thought is on getting the word out, like that presentation that you just gave to the general public, so that people are aware of it.
Well, because Valley Metro is going to be administering the program, they're also going to be doing the marketing of the program. And Ron told me a while ago that their board approved this IGA this afternoon. So if the council approves the program tonight, then they're ready to go forward immediately with their marketing, getting the applications out I imagine they'll do that, maybe Ron can expand on that a little bit, but do that by newspaper and social media and things like that on our website, probably Channel 11, things like that. I'll let Ron answer more
Maybe even
specifically.
your presentation too, because there was a lot of information in that.
Yes.
If I could just train him to find the microphones, it'd be so much easier. So just a couple of things. First off, thank you, Mayor and Council, for considering this item. I know when I was here, and I think it was probably the first time, we had a lot of people who were really clamoring for this. And it's taken a while, but we're finally here. So we are actually ready, as of tomorrow, to issue applications to people who have requested them. We are already getting requests from Fountain Hill residents, and we've been telling them that as soon as the council approves it, we will go forward. Our contractor has already set you up in their database, so we will be prepared to accept applications starting tomorrow, and we will be prepared to start issuing cards right at the end of June. We can't incur expense until July 1, so we're going to time this so that the cards don't hit your citizens' hands until they can actually use them. As far as marketing goes, the marketing that we typically do for Ride Choice is through community meetings. I mean, it's a pretty targeted group. I think we can definitely use tools like Facebook and Twitter, and Valley Metro has a presence in both of those social media. We can also do quite a bit of outreach through organizations here in the community. I know you also have your volunteer network and different things. So, unless you have specific things you'd like us to do, that's kind of the typical approach. It's a pretty limited program at this point until we kind of have a feel for how quickly your residents will utilize service. So we don't want to over-market it because then we're going to have to turn a lot of people away. But we'll definitely start with kind of that approach, and then anything else you think we should do kind of right away to get started.
Okay. Councilwoman Dickey has a question for you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brooks, the startup fee, is that 1 year or is that every year?
So there is a $3,000, a $5,000 startup fee. That is an initial fee. That is not a recurring fee. That's basically to establish the account, to create essentially to generate the changes in the software for the reporting and all of those kind of pieces, to do the initial setup with contractors for this area. So those costs are one time, and those will not return. There's a $3,000 annual management fee by the contractor. That's a recurring fee.
Thank you. Mayor, the administrative fee, which I don't think it was in the presentation, but so if we're saying we have like $60,000 to $65,000 and we're going to be able to grant, I think it was around $40,000. So that, do you anticipate that the per capita of the administration of it in Fountain Hills, how does that compare with other cities, or are we pretty comparable?
There's a little bit of an economy with scale. We're starting small here, and hopefully as funding improves, we can provide more service. And some costs will go up a little bit more as volume increases, some will not. The $3,000 fee, for example, doesn't change. The rest of the fees, the Valley Metro administrative charges, those are basically, we have now with Fountain Hills participating 5 cities that participate in the Ride Choice program, assuming that you do, and those costs are divided on a pro rata share based on participation in the program. And each year, we'll look at kind of the prior year's experience to see what the levels of participation are, and we divide our kind of aggregated cost of managing the program among the cities based on their participation. We are also looking to expand participation in the program because it is cheaper than some of the other services that we provide. As the service expands, it becomes more efficient, and we can spread those costs better.
Thank you, Mayor. One more thing. If there happens to be any leftover, what happens at the end of the fiscal year if by some miracle there's any left?
I believe, and I don't know the rules of all of the funding categories, so your folks who are kind of experts with lottery funds, I think those actually can be rolled over. And I think with PTF funds, I'm not sure how those work. But I'm pretty confident that the lottery funds can be rolled over. And our goal, frankly, is as demand increases for this program, which we think it probably will, is going to be to pay close attention to utilization, because I think we're being conservative at 40. And I'm hopeful that as we see how people utilize the service, we'll be able to play with that number so that we spend your funds as you're incurring them, so that people aren't left, waiting for service when it could actually be provided.
Okay. Any questions on this side? Councilman Tate has a question for you.
Hi, this is Tate Elke. Thank you for coming out.
Sorry.
Sorry. Just a few questions first. With the ADA, the PTF ADA funds, what we're estimating, $36,400, and then the city contributions, $29,930. That combination comes out to about $65,000. Is that the LTAF total? I just want to make sure I have my numbers correct. I see Joan nodding her head, so that sounds right. Can you explain what the coupon revenue of $13,440, where's that coming from?
That's coming from the passengers. That's the 25% that they contribute.
Okay. Now, as I understand from reading this, each month, if of these 40 individuals that participate, they'll kick in $25 a month. The town will kick in $75 a month, not to exceed $300 in their account. Is that correct?
Close. The customer doesn't have to contribute all 25. They can contribute in smaller increments. I believe it's down to $5 increments, and you match what's there. And that's what I want to look at. We've assumed that, excuse me, we've assumed that because the trip distances here are probably higher than what we see in the rest of the valley, that people will contribute pretty much the maximum to get the maximum benefit, but people can contribute less. If that is the case, that people are consistently not maximizing their benefit, that's when we would start to raise the cap, because then we'll know that we have some money left over.
Now, can you estimate for me, just let's say it's the maximum, and a participant contributes $25, they receive $75 for that month. How many trips are you going to get, let's say, from Fountain Hills, you could do Palisades and Shea, I guess, down to, I don't know, let's say Sprouts with the 101. I mean, how many trips are we talking about here out of $100 for that month?
Well, yeah, not living in the town, if someone can tell me how far that is, I can actually do that, but it's all driven by distance.
Let's say 5 miles.
So if it's a 5-mile trip.
What, 10 miles round trip?
Okay, well, we do it by one way. So if it's a 5-mile trip and then you do it twice, you're going to be able to do probably about 15 trips. So
15 trips for $100?
12 to 15 trips, yeah.
And that's going to be on $100 a month?
Right.
Okay. And, Mayor, if I may? Yes?
Sure.
Thank you. As far as if the credits aren't used by the participant, they're already in the participant's account, and what's the mechanism if they don't use them? We've contributed for 6 months, they've maxed it out, and they've received 75 times 6, and that's not being used. Let's say the participant's passed away. What's the mechanism for recouping that, and where does that go?
We will actually purge the accounts, and I have to be honest, I don't know the frequency with which that is done, but we will actually close inactive accounts so that we can open up space for somebody else, and those funds would just return to the town. I mean, it's not like they move back and forth on a daily basis. You're basically obligating the money, and then it's billed by the contractor. So, they are set aside. Essentially, when someone contributes, their account is given that additional money, but it's not actually billed to the town until it's used. So if somebody accumulates all that credit in their account, it's a liability, but it's not a spent liability until it's billed.
Okay. And I calculated, just trying to figure out the numbers here, I calculated 40 riders at $75 a month, assuming they maxed it out, of course, times 12 months, and I came up with $36,000 as to the town's maximum liability, I suppose. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, and again, this is a little bit conservatively figured. I think and I don't have my spreadsheet with me, but we could, the number was closer to 45. And again, kind of, we wanted to just get this thing started with a round number that we could explain to customers. Again, as we see this thing go out, we can actually increase that. It's our understanding that your goal is for us to use as much as, but not more than, the lottery funds that you have available. So our goal is going to be to use them until they're gone, but not to exceed them. 40 allows us to do that and probably have a little bit left over.
Anyone else have questions?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Leger has a
Yes.
question for you.
Mr. Brooks, Councilman Leger here, thank you for coming out, and we look forward to working with you in a successful program, and I understand a lot of these details need to be worked out, so I appreciate that. And if there aren't any additional questions for Mr. Brooks, Mayor, I do have a question for our HR Director.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I'm not sure if it's either you or Mr. Buchanan that would answer this, but the question was raised earlier about marketing and where some of the needs are in the community. And I'm just wondering, is there some overlap here between the Give a Lift program? Do we have a sense perhaps for who some of these folks may be already? Heather's involvement? I'm not sure who wants to take that. Yeah.
Mayor, members of the council, this program will be in addition to the Give a Lift, and hopefully we'll be able to take some of those and put them into the ride share and then be able to expand the Give a Lift.
Very good. That
That's
answers
the idea.
my question. Thank you.
Any other questions for John?
Only to say, while Joan's up there, I want to thank her for her service to the town of Fountain Hills. Jones will be leaving service here in a couple of weeks, heading off to the big retirement.
That's why she's
On that,
smiling.
with a great big smile.
Doesn't look too sad.
Bittersweet.
I certainly want to appreciate her service. I know the short time I've been here, she's been a valuable asset to me.
Thank you very much.
How long
Pam.
has it been, Joan? Don't walk away so soon.
Pardon me?
How long has it been?
I have worked for the town a little over 14 years. It was 14 years in April. So, looking forward to retirement.
And Mayor, if I may, the word retirement, I don't see you retiring.
No.
I see some transitioning into other areas. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Joan. All right. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No, Mayor.
No. Okay. Any further council discussion?
Just a motion if you want.
Thank you.
Mayor, move to approve Resolution 2014-32 regarding an intergovernmental agreement with RPTA relating to transit services.
Second?
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor, if I may. I have some concerns about the program and long-term as far as funding is concerned, with LTAF being as uncertain from year to year, with it going down, goes up, and more often than not goes down. I think the example that we saw earlier with economic development with the economic development presentation and the tourism presentation, I think we show that we do things generally better when it's in-house. Now, when we first started talking about this study a year ago, we had the chair of the Senior Service Committee, Jim Judge, in here, was talking about, when we talked about using $66,000 to fund a study, to tell us, frankly, what I think we already knew anyway. But I think that we can use these monies better in-house. We're talking about $66,000 a year and paying $16,100 annually for agency staff, overhead, and program management, as well as a one-time $5,000 user setup fee. And I think that what we're opening the door here, I think there's going to be a heck of a lot more people than 40 that are going to want to take advantage of this program. And I think it's a considerable amount of money to spend on simply 40 residents, and I think we can get more bang for the buck out of this. I really do, and I think we can do that better in-house. That's not to say that this isn't a good program and it doesn't provide, obviously, a helpful service, but I think we can do better, and I think we can do better in-house using the funds, and with the uncertainty of the funds and the uncertainty of how this is going to grow, I think we may be creating something that is going to end up costing the town considerably more money, because it's going to be harder once people are on the program. It's going to be something that's going to be continued from there on out. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
We have a motion.
Did we have a second? I didn't think we had a
Did
second.
we have a second?
Yes, we had a second.
I-
And then I
yes.
asked for further discussion.
yeah, and I did have a comment I'd like to make,
Okay.
if I may, regarding further discussion. Councilman Alke, I share some of the same concerns that you've raised this evening. The other side of that is I'd like to give this a shot and see how it works out for a year as perhaps a pilot program. And, you know, our staff has been reduced over 40%. And I believe, and I thought about this when it was presented the last couple of times, this is a labor-intensive program, and I'm not sure we have the resources in-house to do this. I mean, I agree with you philosophically that perhaps in-house we could cut down on our overhead, but then again, that might translate into salary if we had to hire people to do those types of things. So I'll be looking at this program very closely for the first year and, you know, looking at our cost. And, you know, we've had programs like this in the past where the funding has dried up, and basically we've just had to share that with our residents, and the programs have gone away. So I'm willing to take a look at it for a year. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hanson.
And just one more thing along that line. When Mr. Judge was here, and he was stressing how important it is to get something in place sooner than later. So I think for the sake of getting something in place as soon as July 1, it behooves us to go ahead with this now, because to do it in-house would take quite a bit of studying and more studying, and how would we accomplish that? So I think in order to get it going right away, we need to approve it now.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilwoman Dickey?
One, Mayor, just regarding the lottery funds themselves, this isn't along the same lines as it was before, where they took the HERF money or whatever from the counties, and then they just couldn't afford it anymore. The lottery funding was taken by the legislature, as you know, but then it was restored in Maricopa County due to air quality, and it was a court decision. So the idea that this is as fleeting as you think is really not the case right now. Obviously, anything can happen in the world, but I'm much more comfortable in the reliability of this funding than I was in the other. So I'm not as concerned about that. But yeah, I think the 16 or 15,000 is a little heavy. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 6-1.
Consideration of a one-year contract extension for T-Mobile's stealth cell tower antenna on Shea Boulevard. Ken?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this is a cell tower that we all know. It's out on 17230 East Shea Boulevard. It's the flagless flagpole, as we like to call it in-house. Unfortunately, it's was supposed to be a stealth cell tower for the flagpole, but the flag was that was supposed to be used for the proportion of the pole was unfortunately conflicting with the SRP 69 kV electric line and was rendered unusable. So, you know, there have been many attempts to continue the use of the T-Mobile cell tower guised as something else, but was unsuccessful. We couldn't come to terms on what they wanted to do, something else with a stealth alternative. The current lease has expired. It's a staff recommendation that we give them a one-year extension under consideration to determine the pole, be moved or accommodate the flag, or find another location for this cell tower. Because the lease has expired, we asked them that it be commensurate with one of our latest cell tower negotiations that we've had, so they agreed to pay a $702 execution of the lease, which would equate, and plus $999 a month, which would equate to the other leases that we've had recently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Ken. Questions for, any questions? Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
No? Then, can I get a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the one-year extension of the T-Mobile West Tower located at 17230 Shea Boulevard.
Second.
All right, right, any further discussion? Making sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you. Number 14, consideration of amendment number 1 in the amount of $62,997 to contract C 2014-143 with Low Mountain Construction Incorporated for the Avenue Medium Improvement Projects. Ken and Paul.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, again, Development Services Director has a request for an amendment to the contract for the medium project for electrical services with SRP.
Mayor and council members, council approved the construction contract with Low Mountain on April 3rd of 2014. The bid documents included plans from SRP that would provide 400 amp three-phase power to the east median. They were coming off a 100 kV transformer that's in front of the Chase Bank, and they were going to run, the contractor was going to run trench and conduit down to the east median. After the project was bid out and we met with SRP on site for our pre-construction meeting, SRP informed us that, well, let me step back a second. The original plan was to change that 150 kV transformer to a 500 kV transformer to get the adequate power to the east median. When we had the pre-construction meeting, SRP informed us that they could not upgrade that transformer because it was on a dead end, so we needed to do a redesign. Went through quite a few iterations with SRP, and the ultimate design will bring power off a 600 kV transformer that's at the corner of Paul Norden and Verde River. That was a pretty tight corridor. What it did is it basically more than doubled the length of trench and conduit the contractor needs to do. That area is known for very rocky soils, so they're anticipating a hard dig. So that is the it's almost $63,000 to get power actually to that east median. Since the staff report, we have contacted SRP. They are going to refund us the $26,000 for the original design that didn't work. They will charge us $11,000 for the new design. While it's an easier design for them, it's a lot longer length of trench and conduit. So we will be getting, in essence, $15,000 back from SRP. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Paul. Questions? Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Does the $62,000 reflect the $15,000 credit we're going to get from SRP?
No, it does not.
So we can subtract the $15,000 and it comes up to more like $47,000 with the refunded
That's
fee.
correct, but that would be an internal accounting.
Exactly. So tell me again what happened and why our engineer didn't pick up that what SRP was doing wouldn't work?
It's, SRP provides the design. Our engineer really has nothing to do with SRP's design. They're assuming that they're going to provide power to a certain point, certain amps, and so it's really on SRP's side.
So how many feet, it's common, you note that it's doubled, the pipeline has doubled?
Correct. It's going to be about it's between 700 and 800 feet of trench.
700 or 800 more feet?
No, total.
Okay, and what was the original?
A little over 300.
So we've increased about 400 lineal feet for $62,000? Is that right? Yeah, it'd be.
Well, the $62,000 is the full 700 to 800 feet. There's a credit back in the contractor's calculations for what they had in their bid originally.
I'm still, I'm really confused now. Is the $62,000, does that reflect, if the $62,000 reflects the full 700 to 800 feet, and there was an original 300 feet, where does the credit come to us?
If you look in the document, now when you hard bid a project,
the contractor's going to put money in different line items. They show a credit of 6182 in their calculation when they come up with the $63,000.
61, I'm sorry.
Low Mountain had a bid item for the trench and conduit of 6182 in their original bid.
Madam Mayor? 6,182.
Correct.
And they're going to charge us, to piggyback on Councilman Brown, they're going to charge us
62,000.
62,000 for 400 extra feet.
Correct. They underbid their original trench and conduit.
This doesn't add up to me. For some reason, I'm struggling with 62,000 for 800 feet. It doesn't calculate.
Correct. We went through their man hours, their cost, their trench, their slurry, their asphalt. We reviewed all their numbers. You pay a little premium when you do a change order. There is a 10% markup from the contractor.
Madam Mayor?
Vice Mayor,
Again, to
yes.
piggyback on my colleague, Dr. Brown, if the original hard bid was 6,200 for 300 feet, this is aside from the redesign, and then they're coming back for 400 more feet, even if you add the 10% change order and double the amount, you're still coming in at 20 grand.
Correct. When you do the original bid, they are bidding, let's say, 70-plus items.
Right.
So they are, their swags in there. They put money in certain things. They might put more money in asphalt.
I'm with you.
More money in, landscaping and different things. When you go back to do a change order, they're getting the true cost from their
It's the C word.
subcontractors to do their work.
Change
To do their work, correct.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Council, what it comes down to is SRP.
Yes.
Who led us to that one transformer that we were going to pull it off of. We've come to find out they couldn't use it when they told us that they could. Now they've come back to us and said, no, you've got to go to another one which is bigger and it's going to take longer. We got to dig up asphalt and run that in there. Now it's dealing with a change order process.
Okay. Anything further?
Well, all I'm saying is that the math doesn't add up. I don't mind paying a little bit of a premium. I understand change orders, and I understand what we're going through. And I know that SRP is one of the most difficult organizations to deal with. I mean, they are notorious. They are unregulated. But I just feel like that this is not a little bit of a gouge, but a fairly major gouge. The numbers don't add up. So, I mean, we may be handcuffed, as town manager is saying, which we are, but have we looked at other options? Can we go to a single-phase system? Can we address it from other angles?
All of our equipment's been ordered and everything else. If you went to bid this work out, you could bid it out. However, they're going to come back it's going to take me 2 months to bid it out. And then you're going to I'm surprised they haven't asked for delays already.
Well, but they come to us, didn't you say, in April during the pre-con, and tell us that they wouldn't be able to do this?
No, it was after the bid. It was the pre-construction for the SRP work.
Right, that's what I meant to say.
But it was after the Low Mountains bid of the project.
Okay. We may not, I believe we don't have an option, but it's really too bad to be taken advantage of.
Councilman Elke?
Thanks. So, Paul, I picked up on something you said earlier. When they originally bid it, it was at 300 feet, and they bid it at 6,182. Is that correct?
Correct, but honestly, I don't think you could do it for that price.
Right. They underbid it, as you said.
Sure.
So they underbid it at that time. Now, for 800 feet, it's 62,997.
Correct, and they're providing their subcontractors man-hours, equipment rental rates, just the slurry backfill for that length is almost $18,000.
Well, they underbid it because it was part of a big project.
Correct.
Now that it's this separate thing that they have to rebid again, they want to get what it might have been for a single
That's
project.
absolutely correct.
Any other questions for Paul?
Mayor, if I may, so at the end of the day, with all this going on, you know, in terms of what the cost is here, what the refunds are, and all the numbers that are moving around, what's it costing us in additional dollars? Given our credits and...
About $48,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any other questions for Paul? Okay,
Just real quick.
sure, Councilman Hanson.
$82, please.
Paul, what was the contingency for this project?
We have a $40,000 contingency, and we're going to be using it on some other things.
Oh, never mind.
Nice try. Okay, would someone like to make a motion? We don't have any speaker cards, do we?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion? Even if you don't like making the motion?
I take it no one from Low Mountains here tonight?
Of course not. Mayor, I move to accept the change order bid of $62,997 to contract C 2014-143 with the Low Mountain for the amended work as presented with the credits as discussed.
Second?
Second, reluctantly.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Consistent with my votes on this, nay.
Mayor, 5-2.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Mayor, if I may, Paul, obviously, we're not directing the, you did nothing wrong, it's frustration.
He's just waiting for the next item so he can get
Now
to
we
this
get
one. Number 15, discussion with possible direction to staff regarding possible changes to the Avenue of the Fountains Median Project tree selection, public address system, Wi-Fi system, and a roundabout at the intersection of La Montana and Avenue of the Fountains. Ken? Paul?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of council. Council members requested these items to be placed on the agenda to discuss further. Staff will be able to assess you where we can on what you want to do and seek direction on what you want to do with these.
All right, the first is the tree selection. I was asked to give a presentation on what trees we selected for the median project and how we came about it. I know the mayor and council have received some emails, and we've had some letters to the editor as well in the Fountain Hills Times. The project actually has been going on for a few years, but Landmark Design came on board in December of 2012. They made a presentation to council in January of 2013 for the concept plan. We showed you the hardscape plans, the fountains and the plaza concepts, the walkway, the art nodes, the picnic areas, the shade canopies, site furnishings, and also the landscaping and species of trees. The original hardscape and landscape plans are modeled around the downtown vision plan and the downtown area specifics plan to provide a green mall, shade, amenities such as an art walk and upgraded fountains, and we tried to fit within the project budget. The original landscape concept plan consisted of 62 new trees. There were 19 sisu, 11 pine, 4 catalpa, 9 Swan Hill olives, 3 eucalyptus, and 16 Rio Grande ash. Now, to turn that plan around from December to January, they worked pretty quickly, and we didn't have a lot of time to review the plan. When staff reviewed their plan, once we got into the design phase, we asked them to remove the eucalyptus. They're a fairly dirty tree, a lot of shedding. A lot of their branches just spontaneously fall out there. So we didn't want the eucalyptus. We've had a lot of problems with those trees. The Rio Grande ash is also not on our approved plant list, and it's not on the ADWR low water plant list as well. We gave direction to the architect to use trees that are both on our approved plant list and on ADWR's low water use plant list. Again, we also have, with this project, we're providing deep root irrigation to all new trees and to existing trees. And what that is it's a drip system into about an 18-inch to 24-inch perforated tube that will get the water down to the roots and make the roots go down. Also, where we have trees that are going to be close to sidewalks or any hardscaping, we're going to put a bio root barrier fabric down, which will also help to drive the roots away from the improvements. The final landscape plans consist of 61 trees. There's 22 sisu, 16 pine, the 4 catalpa, 8 Swan Hill olives, and 11 evergreen elm. And those plants are on our plant list as well as ADWR's low water plant use list. These are the final landscape plans that show the tree locations. I know there's been some concerns with the sisu tree. Those are mainly around the art node areas and the picnic areas, and I gave you guys color marked up copies. These are just some enlarged plans. Again, these are some pictures of the different varieties of trees. We have the sisu, the pine, the Swan Hill olive, catalpa, and the evergreen elm. We went on the hunt for some sisu trees. We have 4 in the town hall complex. There's 2 by the community center, the corner closest to town hall, and there's 2 by the library book drop. And those are in desert landscaped areas next to curb, sidewalk, and different areas, and we've had no problems. There's also a row of 11 sisu trees behind Plaza Fountainside in about a 4-foot DG area with curbs and sidewalks and right next to the park, and there's no real problems there as well. And they only, just looking at it, they only have a couple of the small drip irrigation right at the trunk of the tree sticking up. We were asked why the town wasn't using the jacaranda tree, which was adopted as the town tree in 1997. This is not really a shade tree. It's also native to tropical and subtropical regions. It needs a little more water, and it's not on the ADWR plant use list. And this is one I found over on Cactus Wren Court. And it's kind of a more, I use the term wispy. You can see through it, and it doesn't provide a lot of shade. And the landscape architect was trying to choose trees that were more for like park-type settings and that they've used on previous projects in the valley. We were also asked about why we weren't using native desert trees. The native desert trees are really your palo verdes, your ironwoods, your acacias, your desert willows, and that's more of a kind of like a xeriscape type product. And this is a picture of the median on the avenue, but across from the post office. And that's, I mean, we could do that, that'd be great, but that's not consistent with our downtown vision plan, having events and those type of things. And that's the presentation, and we have the architect and landscape architect to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay. Questions for Paul? And we have speaker cards, right? Okay. Why don't we do our speaker cards? Thanks, Paul.
Robin Luke, followed by Peter Bordeaux.
Thank you for letting me speak. When I read the, my name is Robin Luke, and I live in Gilbert, but I've had a business here for 34 years, so I am interested. When I looked at the trees that they have, the sisu tree has sucker roots. I have like 10 growing in my backyard from a neighbor sisu tree. The nursery told me to put root kill on it that will take it down and kill the original tree. He said that's the only way I can get rid of them. So I gave you some documents there, and I took the liberty of outlining or highlighting some of the negative, some of the good things. If you'll notice right up the top, Florida has labeled it an invasive species. It also says down at the bottom that it has sucker roots. Then, if you go to the back page, it talks again about the sucker roots. The Eldoracia pine, it is low water or drought tolerant, but in an area that gets 20 inches of rainfall a year. We don't quite get that. So I don't know if we're going to have to put more water on it because of the amount of rain that we don't get, since we get somewhere between 9 and 12. We're also in a zone 13, and if you'll look, it's good for zone 6 through 10. Then, the next one is the, let's see, the Chitalpa, I think is what I have. Anyway, its habitat is down at the around the water, the washes. And I don't know that on the median that's going to be quite like that. I'm not a landscape architect, I'm not an arborist or any of that, but I just found that they, some of the selection of these trees weren't quite going with what the town would really want to see. I see problems down the road with some of those, and on the back of the Chipotle, it gives a lot about the trees. A lot of them are infected right now that we get from California. If you get them from someplace else, they're not infected, but all the ones that are coming from California are infected. Now, the second pamphlet I was challenged to find a solution to the problem, so I looked up some of the trees. It was not easy, but I did find a few of them, and they use a lot less water. They are watered once, maybe twice a month, but the other ones are about 2 to 3 times a month. So anyway, if you'll just take a look at them, they're just suggestions. I'm not tied to them, just wanted to see that we have a wiser choice made.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker,
Peter Bordeaux.
Peter.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for this opportunity. So, Peter Bordeaux, longtime Fountain Hills resident. I'm also a commissioner on the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission. I'm here to not talk about trees, but to talk about Wi-Fi. So, you know, economic development is one of the issues that we've been working on very hard on SPAC, and something that you've been working hard on as well. So when I first started as a SPAC member, one of the first things I did is I took a look at the technological infrastructure of the town, right? Looking at Wi-Fi opportunities, cellular access, power grid opportunities, as well as broadband internet service. And looking at what would attract more population to the town, both in visitors and young families moving here as well. Wi-Fi was one of the 4 pillars of technological infrastructure that I identified as a key area that we should be addressing. So I'm liking that I see it on the agenda tonight for discussion. I think that, you know, speaking to business attraction and business retention, I think adding municipal Wi-Fi down the avenue of the fountains really could be a key element for that. And I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I found on the internet. A couple of folks that said a couple of things that I wanted to share. One was noted technology blogger Victoria Jeffrey, who said, municipal Wi-Fi is one of the best ideas connected with internet computing today. It can make a city very attractive, sophisticated place, which can draw more professionals, entrepreneurs, creatives, and many others to the city. This in turn brings rich economic benefits to the city. In the future, it will be the sign of a sophisticated, evolving, forward-thinking city. And then a couple of thoughts from Mike Luzio, who's the co-founder and chief executive officer of Industry Retail Group Incorporated. He says, experience has shown that offering Wi-Fi results in higher store traffic, higher customer loyalty, and higher per-ticket sales. Not offering Wi-Fi is equivalent to retailers having a no-returns policy for fear that the few customers who may abuse it. It's proven that a better customer experience increases revenue. My advice is to view Wi-Fi as a revenue generator because it is, rather than a line item expense. And I just wanted to underline that, you know, one of the things that we're really looking to do here is attract families to the town, right, and make the town look hip and look forward-thinking. And this Wi-Fi really is a reality. It's 1 out of 4 people are connected to the internet in their daily lives. That's a lot of people. And having this as part of our downtown plan, I think, is a key element in forward thinking and really making the town sophisticated and attractive. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Anyone else?
No.
Oh, that's it, okay. All right, then we'll go on to council discussion. Why don't we start with the trees, so we can,
Mayor, I think there was another one that needed to be discussed, and that was public address system that was on the agenda, and I
Right.
want to have maybe Paul give you a little bit of brief discussion about that request as well.
Mayor Cavanagh, member of council, I actually have information on the Wi-Fi PA and the roundabout, so I don't know if you want to talk about the trees first, then move on to the next subject, or if you want me to go through them all.
yeah, maybe we could do the trees first, so we can keep it a little organized. Okay, all right. So let's open up the discussion to the council on the trees. And also, I believe we have a landscape architect here with us.
In the lead.
Correct, we have the landscape, or we have the architect, Wade Falcons, and the landscape architect, Don Campbell.
Yeah, Dawn? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Dawn? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and City Council members. It's great to be back, and I got to say, I'm excited to see that people have actually taken note of some of the things that we're doing out here and some of the plant material we selected, and I'm glad to see them getting involved, because a lot of times we'll do things and they'll just kind of look at us and go, okay, something else is going up. I'm glad to see people are doing that. So to kind of address the issue of the trees and some of the points that were made tonight. First off, let's go back and let's talk about the sisusu tree. It was introduced to the desert here in the valley about 25 years ago. It is from Australia. It is a desert tree found around the riparian areas, the washes, back in the Australian area. We found it's a great substitute, and I'll say it this way, it is a substitute for what we found all up and down the avenue here for years and years, the eucalyptus. It is not a brittle tree. It is not a tree that has a heavy litter. Yes, its roots are invasive if not watered properly, if not taken care of properly. If you go for a surface rooting, roots are going to pop up like the eucalyptus do, like the ashes and elms or any other kind of tree. When you try to water them, they're going to try to find water. We've gone in and we put a drip system. We're going to actually water them from above, because most of these trees do sit in the turf areas, but we're also going to give it a supplemental drink of water, a deep watering, once, twice, maybe 3 times a month during the summer months, and during the winter months, maybe every other month. But the idea being, give it a deep watering, a deep root watering. That way we encourage the roots to go downward, seek out where the water is best found, instead of on the surface, where we end up with bad rooting, surface roots, and other problems that come along with that kind of issue. We found this sisisu, I've been using it now, as I said, for about the last 20, 25 years. And we've had great success. We originally started using it as a tree in parking lots, and we found soon after that it does, like if you don't water it properly, it will heave some of the curbs. So nowadays we put a root barrier around it, and that's part of the reason we're using the fiber underneath the walkway system out here, the pavers that we'll be utilizing. That will discourage some of the roots. In that fiber material, there is a product in there to just, when it hits that, it will push it back down, a chemical, and so it works incredibly well. And we've used it in other areas, in places like LA, San Francisco, and areas where we really have tight areas of constraints. The other thing we found by utilizing the sisisu in a park and other settings, when it does lose its leaf, now understand, this is an evergreen tree, so it will have some leaf drop, but it's nowhere near as messy as the elms or ashes or those lovely eucalyptus we had out there for such a long time. And it's not a brittle tree, and that's what I was worried about. I always look for safety first, and when I use this tree in a park or in a lot of my schools, and schools are my primary, I'll say, portion of my design practice, I use them there all the time, and then we found those to be a wonderful source for shade year-round, and they do very, very well. Any questions about the sisisu, or I'll keep on moving along?
Questions? Councilwoman Hanson?
Robbins was the first letter that I saw about the sisu tree, so it made me, of course, go on the internet. And then I had a call from a former resident that had moved to a retirement community that was built 4 years ago. She said they planted many sisu trees, and they've ended up taking them all out because of the problems. So when I first emailed Ken, I said, is there any way we can get some kind of a guarantee that after we're spending all this money on putting in all this new wonderful infrastructure, that we aren't going to encounter problems? And I understand about the deep water irrigation and the blocks and all that. But I guess when you read so many things, and there was an article last April written by the director of horticulture at the Desert Botanical Garden, and he was answering questions about the sisu tree. And he just says, I would not plant this tree within 40 feet of any hardscape or foundation. You can cut the roots, but expect them to return. And I would suggest you plant another tree that doesn't have these problems. So it just seemed like, there was so much information relevant to that. It's like, it just seems like, it feels like a gamble to me, even though all these precautions are taken. So that was my concern on the sisu.
Councilman Hanson, if I may. I understand, and I can tell you my background. I come from an old-time nursery family, and through the years we see trees come and trees go. Back when I started my practice 31 years ago, I think everyone remembers the lovely bottle tree that we all fell in love with, and then the eucalyptus came along right along behind it, and we all fell in love with that and planted everything up. We find things out about the different plants as we go along. The articles and different things that we've heard about the sisus have really been limited because of the technique and maintenance practices that go on with them, is what we're finding now. I've seen the same articles that you're talking about and have not really seen that on my projects and as an issue. And that's the primary reason. I don't think it's a gamble. I think it's a tried tree that's been tried over the years and has done a fabulous job for what it's expected to do. And we're going to be out in the middle of most places out here around areas where we want some shade. And that's really what the avenue is to do, is to create a shade area, a welcoming area, to invite people down here to utilize and also then help rebuild, to draw commercial and attract future business to the area. And so is there other trees we could go for? I'm sure I could go look at the DWR list and see what else we could utilize for what we're trying to achieve here. I think the sisu is really our best bet and where we should go for the future. So, but if you'd like some other recommendations, I'll come back and we can get those and we'll find things that will work very well. One of the other things I'd like to point out to you, instead of utilizing some of the palo verdes, mesquites, ironwoods, and acacias, those are not friendly trees. And I need to remind you, a palo verde, a mesquite, and an ironwood, and an acacia are not, hear me clearly, are not trees. They are shrubs that we have trained over the years into trees. If you look at the tree botany and the makeup of those plants, they are not a real tree. They are shrubs that we train into. And so when we look at those, we look at the amount of maintenance that goes into those and everything else, especially with the acacias and the mesquites and the palo verdes. They grow so rapidly. They grow like a shrub, so you're always constantly doing a lot of maintenance. And we also have a lot of thorns and other things. So that was part of the reason we moved away from those trees, because we have utilized those in those kind of settings in the past, in parks, in schools. But I try to keep those away from public spaces. And this is going to be an incredible, hopefully, I've already seen where it's a public space on several occasions when I've been out here for different events. And so we need to make sure that's the type of plant we want in our space. Other questions?
Okay. Just in the same article, a recommendation that this director of horticulture made was the feather tree.
Feather bush. Yes, the Lysoloma thornberry. It's I'm sorry. I dropped back. Okay.
I wasn't going to try and say that word.
I'm sorry. Part of the things that we do when we look at plants, the sisu is one of the few that doesn't have a lot of common names. I know there's two other common names, but we go to Latin to find things out. It's Dalbergia sisu is the actual Latin name if you want to know what a sisu is. But we use Latin to find out what the the makeup of the tree is and how it grows and everything else, and tells us a lot about the tree. And so the Lysoloma, which is the feather bush, is a lovely tree. It's light and open. It grows well in a very rocky area, but it won't achieve the height and the size that you're really looking for. I've seen some that have been in the ground for 30, 40, probably 40 years. One specific down at Phoenix College, and it's now only about 30 feet tall and with about a 25-foot spread. So we're looking for something a little more with a little more shade. And it is kind of like the jacaranda, a little more of an open, lacy type look to it. So yeah, there are other, I can tell you, my dad and I, who was the horticulturist, who was the nurseryman in my family, and I kind of followed behind, he and I never agreed on trees too. So everyone's going to have a different opinion on how things grow. So there are facts, and there are different things that we need to stand by too. So we know that the eucalyptus is a brittle tree, breaks up in the winds, and has other litter problems. So those are the kind of things we look at.
Well, just
Any
real
questions?
quick, then has the precautionary infrastructure already been put in at this point in the project?
Yes, it has. By putting in the separate drip line system to each individual tree, both existing and new, and it isn't, just as Paul mentioned, the sisu that's up here by the plaza, where the emitters are right next to the tree, we pull them out beyond the root ball so we can actually get the plant seeking those roots, drawing out the roots and getting the water out there so it'll establish itself. So we'll have a good tree sitting in a lawn area. Okay.
Any other questions?
Mayor, just if I could, just a clarification on what you just stated. Is that infrastructure already in for the sisus?
It is part, okay, is it in, it's in the design, yes.
I understand that, but currently, are we at that place in the project? I didn't think we were. Okay.
No, we haven't started the irrigation
Okay,
yet.
so-
That'll be coming up in the near future.
Okay, and that's my question. I don't want to get too obsessive on this, but I'm just looking at timelines. For example, if we were to take a look at the sisus, for example, and just put out a challenge to you and say, can you replace half of those with something and come back with a recommendation? I see that Paul is shaking his head.
You're going to take that one?
My question is what would that do to our schedule from a practical point of view, and would there be a change order, and would that cost us money?
It would blow it up. Right now, the irrigation submittals have all been approved. The irrigation, they've got the electrical conduit in the ground. They're finishing up the fountain plumbing. They'll be working on the irrigation here in the next few weeks. The contractor has actually been holding off on ordering the trees just because of this meeting.
Okay.
They need to get the trees ordered. Don actually has to go down to the nursery to inspect the trees that they pick out. He's going to go take the trees that we want. The landscaping on the west median, without having the schedule in front of me, should be actually going in within the next month or so.
Okay.
So to wait to come back to a council meeting in sometime in August, we can do it, but the contractor is going to be asking for time and money.
Very good. That answers my question. It was just, the practical side of it. I understand the aesthetic side of it, but there's that practical side. And I expect that if we get all these little roots coming up and flying up in the next 10 years, you'll return and help us out with that.
Don, would you mind coming up again? I just had a question. Yeah, I also did some research, and I actually got the same article that Councilwoman Hanson did. But I know that one of the biggest complaints that we always got from the people when we took down the trees was that we were going to put up real small trees. And I noticed that in the research that this is one of the fastest growing trees. As a matter of fact, this article here says super fast, seems to grow overnight. So I wonder if that's one of the reasons why you chose it, so that it's going to give us a lot of shade and work pretty quickly that way.
Mayor Kavanaugh and council members, that is one of the reasons I chose it, but I just like the tree. It has responded well to what I've utilized it for in the past, and that's in areas where I want to obtain shade. Yes, it does grow fast, like the eucalyptus, like the bottle tree. The other ones that we experienced in the past that had problems, but we haven't seen that problem out of them. And the be perfectly honest, I have never seen, and I can tell you this, maybe I haven't seen it because they mowed them off, but in the schools where we've utilized them or in the parks where we've utilized them, I've never seen them come back up with suckers. And so this is, when I read the articles, I just kind of, oh, okay. Maybe it's, I really don't know much about that fact. And so it's something I could put some calls out to. And to answer Councilman Ledger, your comment, could I come up with another tree and replace some of them? I'm sure we could. And that would be something fairly easy to do, and I could be back to you by tomorrow with that kind of a statement. But we have to take one step, and I did use the word "but" there, and I know that's a bad word to use, but the thing is, I'm not sure what the cost would be and what the availability is. I know the trees that we have, I've talked with the landscape contractor already, and we basically have an idea where they're all coming from, so we're pretty comfortable. And most of the trees, let's put it this way, all of the trees that we're getting have been grown locally by the local nurseries from rootstock and on up.
Sure. Mayor, if I may. Oh, I'm sorry, Ginny had her hand up.
I just had sort of a general question about protection to us for any of these trees. And, you know, I'm not remembering what might be in the contract or anything, but what sort of protections do we have as far as any of them just dying or you know, being damaged or whatever?
Mayor Kavanaugh and council members, we have a 1 year guarantee on all the trees out here. Within 1 year, you will see or have an idea what's going on with those trees. That's the reason we give you a 1 year guarantee on them. And the contractor has to replace them within that time, and that guarantee starts again.
Okay.
Councilman Leger was before me.
All right, Councilman Lachey.
I can defer to you. I've said a few things.
He wants to defer to the Vice Mayor.
The Vice Mayor, yes.
Thank you. Don, I apologize. I'm very familiar with your projects, but I don't know the specifics of the trees. Or could you name a couple of 3-year projects that might be close by that you can give examples that we all know of?
Wow. Trying to think which ones would have been down here that would be close by. We've used them. I'm on call with the Mesa School District. I'm their landscape architect and have been for the past 25, 26 years, and we have utilized them on a number of their campuses, Red Mountain, at Mesa High. I'm trying to remember all the elementary and junior high schools that we've used them.
Have you had any of the issues that are written in some of these articles at some of those projects?
I haven't, and that's what you can, you know, when I hear about some of the issues that you're talking about with the invasive roots and everything else, if you don't water them properly, yeah, you're going to get some surface rooting. You're going to get that with an elm. You're going to get that with an ash. You're going to get that with an olive, as we've seen out here on the out in the median as already with the olives on the east end. They have a lot of surface rooting, and we had to cover those and really work around them. We were worried that we were going to damage them, but we had to work around those. That was because it was all surface watered. By putting in a drip system and watering these separately, and that's what I do with my schools too. I put a separate drip system on those so that we water them year-round. We give them deep drinks of water, and that's what really gets a good growth habits. And that's something, I gotta say, that's one of those things that Dad taught me a long time ago. If you water them deep, you'll get a good root system. And so that's one of the reasons you don't find me using many mesquites, because they don't, unless you really work at getting those roots out there and anchoring them in, it's not gonna work. We use them on a lot of the different schools, and oh gosh, we used them on a park. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Margaret Hance Park, the deck park down there. We did the Japanese Friendship Garden for them down there. And we used some of the sisters down there because of the character and also the great shade it provides in a quick fashion too. And we've had absolutely no problems down there with them either. So, and I can tell you, I was quite concerned because we have an 1.5 acre pond down there that I didn't want those roots getting into, but we have some of the sisters within 30 feet of that, so.
Councilman Leger.
Okay, Don, you know, we did have a few letters, and I've had a lot of inquiries by phone and Safeway and so forth and so on. And I really appreciate town manager and Paul putting this back on the agenda. My goal was really to bring you folks here so you could do a presentation and provide the public the rationale for why we're doing what we're doing in the trees that we've selected. And in listening to you this evening, although I'm not an expert, I can't even pronounce Sue. I think you've looked at the issues, you've got methods in place to remediate those particular issues, and I'm frankly, comfortable with that. So I appreciate you coming out and helping us with the rationale. And one thing that was stated earlier, I think that's important, is that this is to be a green belt. Yes. And I know it sounds counterintuitive that we're not using natural desert plants, but it is a green belt and is a park. And mesquites and palo verdes and ironwoods do provide shade, but in the wintertime, that has a tendency to go away. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have comments or questions for Dawn? Is there any other speaker cards?
This is for the roundabout.
Oh, okay. All right, then. I guess we don't need a motion if we're not going to do any changes on this, unless there's anyone who feels that they want to speak up now and say they want some changes. I'm not hearing any changes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate
Thank you, council
it.
members.
All right. Now we're going to go on to the, want to do the public address system or the Wi-Fi? What do you want to do
I got
first?
the public address system up next.
Okay.
Mayor and council members, we were asked to look at the PA system, and I was put in contact with a audiovisual company that's actually doing a PA system out in Tolleson. Tolleson is doing about an $8 to $10 million downtown streetscape renovation project, and they are adding a PA system as well. Talked with that company, kind of gave them our drawings, our electrical drawings, provided them with aerial maps of what the median looks like, and they came back with a system that would put 2 speakers on each of the 17 light poles that are going to be in the median, plus their equipment. I'm not an audiovisual guy, so I'll just use some generic terms. For them to provide the speakers, provide the equipment, install it all, was about $60,000, so long as the town provides the conduit, the power, and other items. What the town would need to do is we would need to run about 2,000 feet of conduit up and down the median. We would need to provide a new central block wall enclosure with a gate, and that item right there, based on the styles of gate and the block, is about $5,000. We would have to run power to an air-conditioned enclosure to house the PA system equipment. You're looking at another, $5,000 there. Then with all the conduit, you'd have to run separate conduit for the microphone system, to have jacks at the plazas. You would be boring under Verde River Drive at some point. When we looked at it, you'd have your contractor markup for a change order time. When we looked at it, we thought it would be about a $75,000 to $100,000 item to add it to the median. When I did some research, when the sidewalk projects were done, they did add conduit for a PA system, but they put in 3/4-inch conduit. I don't know how they came up with that. It's kind of hard to run all the wires in that conduit. So if you wanted to look at something at this point, I would suggest maybe looking at a future type project that if that other conduit would work. Right now, from what I've seen, the only event that really uses a PA system is the 2 art fairs, and they rent a portable system from Pro-Am, their rental company.
Sounds a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty amazed at how much it costs.
Yeah.
Comments? Councilman Brown?
Thank you. Are the conduits run for the lights?
Yes.
That's already covered up?
Yep.
Thank you.
Comments on this side?
How would this relate to the Wi-Fi discussion?
I'll address the Wi-Fi separately.
Okay, because if it's something about, can you do two things at once, or is that not?
No.
Different. Okay, so anyone else want to comment, or are we looking at 100,000 and we're going, can't do it, too expensive?
If you wanted to move forward, I'd actually have to go get all the quote, get a real design, prices, and I wouldn't be back to you guys until early, late August at one of those meetings. And then there's more landscaping, and you'd be digging up a lot of stuff
Okay,
you already
well,
did.
I'm not willing to spend $100,000 for a PA system that the chamber is going to use and maybe, one other group. I mean, it just sounds like maybe something for the future, but not right now. Anyone else who would like to comment? Councilman Elke?
Thank you. Paul, with the PA system, is that something, besides announcements and those sorts of things, is that something that would be able to play music as well? I'm thinking in terms of our Christmas events.
Yeah, Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Elke, yes, it could, but you're going to have a system sitting out on the avenue. While it will be in a locked kind of enclosure, it's not really super secure. So, yeah, you could go stick a CD of Christmas music in and play.
Right. And are there any, let's say after this project's done and we've got an opportunity to kind of assess and see what it looks like, are there any wireless options out there?
I don't know. I'm sure there are. Technology's changed, but I'm not an audiovisual guy.
Perhaps something that could be put up for special events and then taken down and stored inside so that we wouldn't have to put something out there permanent that would be subject to the
You
weather
could do that,
conditions.
but that would be, you would have to, if you were going to have something that's physically out there playing, well, I guess if it's wireless somehow. I'm sure it could be done.
All right. Maybe
At
something
at
for
some
the
point,
future.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask the wireless question, so
Okay, all right, well-
it's been asked. And I would agree, I'm looking at all of these changes, I really don't want to increase the cost of this project, so it's just good information for future use from my perspective. Thank you.
All right, so we're pretty much saying we're not going to spend $100,000. That was an easy one. All right, let's talk about the Wi-Fi.
Okay, the Wi-Fi, I know we did have a meeting, I think last year internally, with some people that do the Wi-Fi. The architect contacted was it Hot Zona?
Hot Zona.
Hot Zona, they do Wi-Fi. Talking with our IT, Mike, Wi-Fi is a little easier, but not in the I would personally wouldn't do it in the median. The issue with Wi-Fi is we're going to have the repeaters, and you need power. You're going to need to put them on poles. Our concrete light poles are already ordered. They're not set up for that. The equipment for the Wi-Fi, from what I'm told, is about $10,000, relatively cheap, and you could look at doing it on the existing light poles and adding some outlets to those. So I would, just budgetary purposes, I would look at, $10,000 for equipment, $5,000 to $10,000 to get, poles outfitted to handle that. But then with talking with Mike, you're looking at anywhere to $4,000 to $5,000 annually from the IT budget to subscribe to the internet provider and to, cover any maintenance. So not a big amount, but I would do it as a separate project outside of the median project. If you get it on the poles, either probably on the south side of the median, you'd still provide the Wi-Fi coverage. It just wouldn't be installed in the median.
Right, yeah, I was at that meeting that Peter was talking about, and that meeting was, we had Cox come in just to fill us in on what could possibly be done. And they had said the exact same thing, that it would be easier to put it on the light poles. They talked about the repeaters that you would need. So maybe we do need to look at that as a separate, because having it on the light poles is still having it on the median.
Yeah.
And I know we had also talked about possibly then extending it through the park. So, okay. Councilman Elke?
Great project for IT staff.
Yes.
Is that Mike? Is that Mike back there, right? Well, I would suggest that maybe this is something that we look at later again, too. I'm not too interested in giving Low Mountain any additional work at this stage. But I had a question for legal. If the town's providing Wi-Fi service of some sort or another, what type of legal liabilities or anything, somebody hacks into it and you're connected to that Wi-Fi? Maybe you can ask.
Well, we have it, I can get it right here in this room. We have it in our building.
Okay.
I don't know the legal answer, but.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Elke, the legal liabilities are the same regardless of where the town provides it, and that Pandora's box has been opened up quite a while ago. So I don't know that there's much of an additional risk by adding an outdoor space. It's the same as in Town Hall. It may be easier for someone to be clandestine about it, but I think there's a lot of exposure that we're not able to mitigate.
And we have an excellent IT department, so I don't have to worry about that.
Excellent IT department of one hiding behind the glass at the moment.
Right, exactly. All right, thanks.
Well, you know, I think it's something that we should look at, though, as a separate project, but something that we should still look at, because I agree with Peter that, you know, we've been talking about attracting new families, and that's exactly what they're looking for. They want to come downtown, they want to sit in the park, they want to open their laptop, and they want it to work. And if we're going to be looking at attracting families, then we got to think the way they think, and they want technology. But I agree with you that your advice is that it would be better as a separate project on the light poles, and that confirms exactly what Cox had told me and Peter more than a year ago when we discussed it. So if anyone has a different opinion on that or comment?
It's not different, just
comment?
showing my lack of knowledge in this area. If there are a lot of stores and businesses and coffee places or whatever along the way that were offering it, that had it, you know, is that ever usable when you're outside then?
I imagine if you're close enough and they provide it, you're going to pick up their signal.
Right.
Actually, when you drive down the avenue, if you look at your cell phone, it'll show you the different
Starbucks.
restaurants.
So Frida.
Yeah, and it'll say,
Yeah.
but you probably have to have a password.
You have to have
That was
password.
associated with theirs, but
Right.
there's a number of them. Then you get to Town Hall, and there's
And some of them do change their password continuously, so you can't do something like that. They want you to come in and have coffee.
And then that would be great, right?
Right. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, well then, I guess we'll move on to the next section, unless anyone else has any other comments. Okay, Paul?
Okay. The final item is, been asked to talk about a roundabout at La Montana and Avenue of the Fountains. There was actually a feasibility study done back in 2007 that was presented to council by WIC Engineers. They came up with a total project cost, design and construction of around $1.5 million. The project actually was in our capital improvement program, but was removed back in the 2011-12 fiscal year just to lack of funding. Some of the items from their report, the main items that we need to consider, it could be done, and these are some of the items you just need to consider, is the drainage. There's a lot of drainage that comes down the avenue that just flows straight down. You need to take that into consideration. If you look at the post office parking lot, all their drainage dumps out right onto La Montana and then goes onto the avenue. So during a rainstorm, there's sheet flows that come across there. And we actually, a few years ago, we actually had to cut out a piece of the road there and replace it because of the water over time just cracked and the subgrade got bad. Typically, we would want to have some streetlights out there in a roundabout at night for the pedestrians and the cars because it's a different, turning type movement. We would need to add sidewalks going up the avenue on the north side and then down La Montana on the west side. That's about 2,000 feet of sidewalk we need to add. The post office drop-off box would need to be relocated further away from the intersection. You'd actually need to construct medians on La Montana on the north and south sides of the roundabout. You would lose parking in front of Town Hall, and you would lose parking in front of the bank across the street. You would need to do improvements to the existing medians on Avenue of Fountains. You would need to narrow them up, and you would pretty much wipe out that west median that we're putting in right now. But it was specifically put in without a fountain so that someday, when something did happen at that intersection, it wouldn't be quite as dramatic taking it out. We didn't anticipate talking about it before it's actually built, but you know, it can be done. Honestly, I looked at the numbers from the original report. It seems reasonable for a budget. Your only true way to know what it's really going to cost, a good idea, would actually be to hire an engineer, have them go out and do all the survey, look at the utilities, look at the drainage, and get a plan set to about 30% design, and then they could do a good estimate off of that. Because if you need to do storm drains, you're actually probably running storm drains all the way down the avenue if they can't overcome the grade differences in the water coming off the post office.
So was this original 2007 1.5 million, was that including all of the things you just said, or is that in addition?
No, they made assumptions.
Okay, they made assumptions. Yeah. And any idea what that is in 2014 numbers? No guess?
Could be more, could be less. I mean, the construction prices were high back in, 06, 07. But, they could have missed something too.
Okay.
So.
But still, we're talking at least 1.5 million.
For a budget, I mean, you could probably do it. The big one is any utility relocations and the drainage.
Okay.
You don't know that until you actually go out there and do all your survey work and put a design together.
Okay, thanks. Questions? Councilwoman Dickey?
Thank you, Mayor. So I looked through our past, since starting in 1996, April 27th was when this intersection was first discussed. Found all these newsletters from our past, the not easy to navigate, the intersection, La Montana Avenue, the Fountains. This is 6/23/09. I have minutes from meetings from 2011, 3/20/97. It's been an issue for a really, really long time. So I think what happened, and I know the frustration that comes from staff and when things are wrapped up and you kind of think we made a decision, but on the other hand, and I think all these items probably show that as we see the project going forward and everything kind of being torn up, you start thinking, are we missing an opportunity to maybe do something at a time when it's already disrupted or when somebody's already in there with the machinery? And so you start to think, and I think like with the PA system too, what you just said about Tolleson, it's like, gee, they're doing, obviously a lot of cities do it, and you sometimes feel like maybe we should do that. And I know I told Ken this story, but when I was on the school board and we built the high school, and you get so nervous about doing those kind of things, and so we decided we wouldn't do an auditorium because it's just like, oh gosh, it'll never pass, and so you start taking stuff away, and then now, obviously, it's still a high school without an auditorium. So I think some of that thinking is what came through with trying to add some of these things here. But about the money aspect of it, we're looking at a 2007 one report. Since then, we've had other reports from individuals, a gentleman from the city of Scottsdale, other engineers that are in town. And in fact, I thought this was really bad timing, but it ended up being good timing. Just yesterday, or the day before, there was this thing, you paid for it in Scottsdale, and it makes you look at these projects, and it's $13 million and this and that. Well, this one was about the roundabout at Northside and Frank Lloyd Wright in that area, and it's like, you paid for it $13 million. Well, but when they broke it down, the roundabout itself was $800,000 of it. They did a whole bunch of other things. So I think a lot of the information that we've gotten since this WIC report actually points to a little bit less. And I will look at what you discussed, which was in 2011, 2012 when we did our capital improvement. And in 14-15 we had 192,000 for Avenue of the Fountain, La Montana roundabout. And then in 15-16 we had 1.3 million for the total amount. So it looked like, as far as the roundabout goes, and if you look at the minutes from that meeting in 07 when that presentation was given, there was overwhelmingly positive feeling for it in that spot. And I know that, nobody likes to look at spending a lot of money, but it's been an intersection of concern for a very long time. So that's why I wanted to point that out and see if there was any desire to go forward, look into what you were just saying, maybe getting more information, maybe something that would require halting some of the very far west median work while we take a look at it, to see if it's something that we would perhaps want to go ahead with either as part of this project, something, maybe Low Mountain heard our discussion tonight and decided they could do us a
Sure.
little good with
Just
this.
to answer some of your comments, or expand on some of your comments, we did pull the accident data for the last 24 months from the intersection. There's really only been 4 accidents. One was a single car accident, one was a drunk driver, and then 2 of the accidents were vehicle collisions with no major injuries. Just to get, even if you wanted to do a study, just for me to go get an engineer is going to take 2 to 3 months through our procurement process. I would have to go and advertise a request for qualifications, which is a month process. Have to get all those in. You'd get a lot. You'd probably get like 10, like we did for Saguaro. We'd have to take 2 to 3 weeks reading them all, scoring them, selecting a firm, negotiating a contract, and bringing it back to council. Really, by the time you got an engineer selected, the median project will be substantially complete, pretty much done.
And just, not to just pick on one thing, but just on the accident part, it didn't result in an accident, but just last week I was walking there and somebody was coming on south on La Montana and turned east in the westbound lane, so they were right there going right by the side, the driveway into the post office going the wrong way. So there was not an accident, but it's definitely a confusing area. And like I said, since 1996, we've been talking about it. So I don't know, I wanted to hear what you were going to say. I saw that you looked like you were going to say it.
All right, Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. That has actually happened to me twice in the last 7 or 8 months, where I was headed west on the avenue, and the people that were headed south on La Montana turned down the westbound lane twice. I mean,
We watched somebody do it this morning from the break room.
it's fairly common. But, at a very minimum, I think the intersection should be looked at a little more closely.
Yeah, we actually restriped it about 2 years ago, and it greatly improved it. Your issue is just when it was built, the overall width. You have conflicting, overlapping turning movements.
Well, I have to agree with Councilmember Dickey that I wouldn't mind at least keeping it on the burner and looking at when we have some money, and that's when we have some money, going out and not attaching this to the median project, but truly looking at putting a roundabout on that intersection.
All right, Vice Mayor Yates?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Of all the places in Fountain Hills, I do think that might be the spot that warrants a roundabout. But before we even get to that and backing into it, was there any traffic study done as to all the different types of intersections that could be done at that spot?
The 2007 report looked at 3 different configurations of a roundabout and a traffic signal.
But no matter what, it was a roundabout.
And
The- They looked at 3 different, they looked at 2 configurations, I believe, of a 160-foot diameter roundabout, a 140 diameter roundabout, and a traffic signal. And I believe the recommendation was for the 140-foot diameter roundabout.
All right. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, anyone? Councilman Elke?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I think probably with the market and having those that we have on the council, we're doing the whole median project for $1.5 million. And I think probably today's market that doing a roundabout at that intersection would probably be less than 1.5. I know this 2007 number, so I have to imagine that would be it. The thing is, this is, as Councilmember Dickey pointed out, this has been talked about since 1996 and maybe even before then, I don't know. And this council over the past 4 years has tackled a lot of tough issues, roads, contracts, different things like that. And I guess, just to put it bluntly, we're either going to do nothing about it and maintain it the way that it is, put a light there, which I don't think is ever going to happen, do a roundabout? Or is there a fourth option that we're unaware of? And Paul, I just want to ask you that question. Is there something else that can go there besides the way that it's striped, other than what I've pointed out?
Your real options, unless, Randy, do you have any? Yeah, it's really roundabout, traffic signal, stop sign.
But just for the record, Randy just threw his arms
Yeah.
in the air.
Traffic cop.
We stumped, yeah. Good, yeah, that'd be I won't want that job.
40 grand a year?
I mean, what is it,
60?
Paul?
Those are basically your controlled intersection options are the stop sign, the traffic signal, and roundabout.
I know it's become kind of a joke to a degree that, yes, you could, simply because we've had 4 accidents over the past 24 months, I don't think that's a true indicator of what really goes on at that intersection. If I sat there all day, one day, you're going to probably see 3 or 4 people doing the wrong turn, driving on the wrong side to get into the post office on a daily basis. And it's,
The first time I came here for my job interview, I got to that intersection and said, what's this? What do I do?
I don't want this job.
Yeah.
So-
Close your eyes and pray.
And that's kind of the, we don't joke about it, but that's kind of the factor is it is a little bit confusing. People stop, take their time and think about it, the people that do, so they kind of go slower in that intersection. So that's probably why you don't see as many accidents.
And I'm not interested in doing a change order, and as I said earlier, I'm not so interested at this moment giving Low Mountain any additional work. But, I would like to also see some kind of discussion about this in the future. If the roundabout's the only other option, that should be something that we should go on. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. And before I forget to, I know we had a speaker card on the roundabout. Is that correct, Bev? Okay. I just wanted, just as a reminder. So I would be in favor of looking at that and doing something.
Honestly, you would probably need about because you have to do a lot of the front end work of an engineering company, the surveying, the utility information. You're probably looking at $50,000 to $75,000 to get a set of plans to where they could do a really good estimate.
Just for 30%, I'm sorry, Mayor. For 30% drawings?
Probably, because a lot of it's your upfront work.
Mayor,
All right.
Mayor,
And where would that money come from, Ken?
Yeah, that's your issue.
Downtown.
It's on one of those trees
The
we're
record.
planning out there.
He is throwing his arms up.
Cut the tree budget.
Sisu trees have money going from it. Yeah. Mayor, if I may have a question. Regarding engineering or regarding cost, I was here at the time when we had that presentation, and the group that did that work for us had a pretty elaborate report. I'm not sure how detailed their drawings were. Is that company still in business? Could you deal, excuse me?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering if we piggybacked off the work that they did, we may be able to cut our costs down.
You would really give this report as part of your advertisement to get an engineer. They didn't really do the surveying to figure out the drainage. They just kind of made assumptions. I don't see anywhere where they looked at utilities that could be relocated. You've had other utilities go in there since this report. So you really need an engineering company to come in and do the surveying, look at the drainage, run the drainage reports, look at the utilities.
Okay, I hear you. It's not usable then. We need the engineering. Thank you.
All right, well, on this issue, I guess we're saying that this is probably something that we need to look at in the future because we acknowledge that it's a very confusing intersection. And if between now and when someday we get the money that we could do something like that, we probably need to maybe just look at it and think if there's any other way that, I know you did restriping, but maybe there's some other way that we could come up with something inexpensive that we can do to make it a little bit safer. I know we can't bring the medians in like we did in the other intersection, but I don't know. You're clever. Maybe you can come up with something else for us, but. Okay, so can we hear from our speaker card? Speaker card is Linda.
Linda Bordeaux.
I'm sure Linda didn't mind listening to all the discussion first. She probably was making lots of notes.
It actually answered, I'm Linda Bordeaux. It actually answered most of my questions. One of the things, it's WIC engineers, by the way, who did the report.
Pull that down
and-
just a little more.
Sure. WIC
Yeah,
engineers
there you go.
did the report, just so you know. One of the things is they had assumed that Bashas was going to build on the corner and that Bashas was going to vacate and become something else. So they were taking into account the town size of 22,000 at the time, which we're not anymore, that Bashas was going to do a bigger shopping center. They didn't take into account Adaro Canyon, because how could they? That just happened. And of course, we weren't building the Elman property either, so our population is going to vary again. I personally kind of think the roundabout would be a good idea in this intersection. It's confusing. I found it more confusing after we restriped it than before we restriped it. You know, I remember getting there going, oh my God, now what do I do? And I live here. So maybe there's an inexpensive way that we can restripe it in some way that makes it more serviceable for folks. I mean, the people who live here know, but it's the out-of-towners who don't. But you guys pretty much answered everything else I was going to bring up. I did want to answer something Councilmember Elke said. With Wi-Fi, you could take your iPhone and you could go on to, let's say, Pandora, and I could plug a cable into that and plug it into a PA, and you can get a speaker, you know, this big, and they'll go on stands, and then that can automatically play. The one problem that I think you were addressing Attorney McGuire about, you're kind of surfing at your own, you know, judgment when you go on Wi-Fi. Some Wi-Fis are encrypted and some aren't. To steal somebody's Wi-Fi, they'd have to be outside right now while I'm on my iPad and entering a password for them to get it. So most Wi-Fi can be secure. If you're encrypted, you're great, but it just depends on what's going on as far as that goes. So, but the Wi-Fi idea is pretty good. I don't know, Peter also was telling me that we could also charge vendors for point-of-sale service, you know, for the art fair, yada, yada. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about the roundabout. Thanks for letting me hear the discussion, because it answered most of what I was going to say.
All right,
All right,
thanks for
good night.
waiting. Okay. All right, then we don't need any motions here, so let's go on to item 16 is one report for items 16 and 17. And Andrew, do you want me to read 16 first, or?
No, Madam Mayor, I'll
Go
give you
right into
about
it.
30 seconds on this.
Okay.
As you all remember, the Senate Bill 1598 required us to go through, or I'm sorry, 1525 required us to go through and massively overhaul the development fee system. We went through the process. The fees have been adopted. This is now the adoption of the code amendment that goes with it to implement the new process. This is based upon the model ordinance that was drafted for the league. Back in 11, I've modified it to match Fountain Hills and to update it a little bit since then, but for the most part, this is the final piece of the puzzle so that everything will match in August when the fees go in place. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Andrew? The only comment that I have to make is at the last subcommittee meeting, the league said, by the way, the builders may be back.
That's what I've heard.
So
as
just
well.
when we get it all fixed, it may end up changing again.
Just when we start to implement, we'll go back and fix it again, I guess.
So, let's see, I need a motion for each of these items, so I'll read, if there's no speaker cards and there are no other questions for Andrew, consideration of Resolution 2014-31 declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled the 2014 Development Impact Fee Ordinance of the Town of Fountain Hills.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Okay, number 17, consideration of ordinance 14-06, adopting the 2014 Development Impact Fee Ordinance of the Town of Fountain Hills by reference and amending the Town of Fountain Hills Town Code, Chapter 7, Buildings and Building Regulations, Articles 7 to 10, Development Fees, by deleting it in its entirety and replacing it with the 2014 Development Impact Fee Ordinance of the Town of Fountain Hills.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any speakers?
No, Mayor.
Speaker cards? Nope. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you. Consideration of Resolution 2014-22, levying upon the assessed valuation of the property within the town of Fountain Hills, subject to taxation, a certain sum upon each $100 of valuation, sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be required in the annual budget specifically for the purpose of paying principal and interest upon bonded indebtedness, all for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2015. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, again, you have the league resolutions that were in front of the Resolutions Committee. Wondering if the council wanted to have any other further support of any of these resolutions that will now go.
That's the one before.
I knew that.
Okay. See how we help each other?
We all look at each other.
And my screen just went blank.
Mine did too. I had to reload
something.
I reloaded it.
Yeah, I'm out.
So where are we at?
I have no idea.
It's
Madam Mayor, this is
Number
the
18.
annual tax levy that's required to be
Yeah.
done in order to implement the budget and all the debt service you need to pay for the next fiscal year. You need a motion.
But for the record, we're not raising taxes.
No,
Just sufficient enough to pay for the debt services.
pay for the debt services.
Mayor, move to approve Resolution 2014-22, levying a property tax upon the property owners of the town of Fountain Hills, a levy of .1151 per hundred of assessed valuation for the purpose of payment of principal and interest on bonded indebtedness.
Is there a second?
Second.
No speaker cards, right?
No speaker cards.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, only just one comment. It's 12 cents per 100.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Okay, now we are on discussion with possible objection of staff related to any item included in the League of Arizona Citizen Towns Weekly Legislative Bulletin or related to any action proposed or pending before the state legislature. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, what I just said.
Just that, yeah.
It is 9:25. Mayor, members of the council, again, the Resolutions Committee met on these, I believe, Tuesday. But there were some recommendations and with some further questions on a number of them, and also some pulled off. But given that being that said, and I'll let you give the update because you were there. Those resolutions are now going to go back to the to the executive committee and then to the 91 mayors at the league conference to further discuss and or approve as part of the overall legislative agenda for the coming year. This gives the council maybe an opportunity to throw their hat in on any support of any of these for consideration tonight. So that way we can have our name on some of these if you'd like it. I know obviously one of them stands out, and that's HERF. If there are any other ones that any council member after your review have any other ones that you think that want to be consideration, you might want to throw those out for discussion with the rest of the council members.
Right. And does everybody have the list of knowing what was recommended?
No.
Oh, I thought everybody had the list.
Oh, Mayor, I was going to ask you about that because before we would start saying whether we like something or not, it might not even be on there.
Okay, sorry, I thought that you were all supposed to get copies of this, which we made up for you. Well, most of them were recommended with a lot of questions and a lot of comments. That's the way it's kind of moved along. All the mayors that were there, including myself, had lots of questions because most of them they're not very clear as to what will happen, what could happen. The recommendations are really just to move it along and say that this has some value, and then we move it along, and then the discussion will continue. Ultimately, it's the 91 mayors who will be deciding which of these they want. 2 of them were pulled off by Flagstaff, and that was number 9. The Arizona Housing Trust Fund was removed. And number 18 was removed by Flagstaff. The mayor of Flagstaff was there at the meeting, and even though he was not the sponsor on one of them, he had the authorization from the other municipalities to remove it. If you just look down your list, you've got like 1 to 7 were recommended to go on. Number 8, which is authorized, is the sampling. That one was recommended but not put on the consent because there were so many questions about that. They want to make sure that that one gets a good discussion at the meeting. And then 9 was withdrawn. 10 was recommended. 11 was recommended, but it was amended not to lock in the sweep. Most of the mayors there were concerned also with the $500 million shortfall in 2017 that the state is probably going to be facing. So while they want to recommend some things like number 11, which is to appropriate $20 million for infrastructure, restoring original statutory mandate funding levels, while they want to do that, the GIDA, they don't want to lock it in as a restricted fund, because they feel that there are some things that have to remain open, that if we do have another economic situation where the state needs money from somewhere, if all the money is locked in, they have nowhere to go. So they were pretty much in agreement on that. 12 and 13 were combined and recommended, then 14, 15 also recommended. 16, the cell phone texting and all of that they wanted to ban. Texting ban was introduced in the legislature the last session, and they couldn't even get texting through. So they decided to reduce it to texting and pass it on as a significant municipal issue. They felt that if we could at least get the texting. And part of the big discussion with that one is that we do need a statewide whatever we decide. You know, right now you have Phoenix having something different than we do, than Tucson. People come as tourists, they move around to different areas. They don't know that in one area you can text, in another area you can, or someplace you can answer the phone and someplace you can. You know, California is totally uniform with whatever they have. So whatever we do, they want it for the whole state. They want the state to do it so it supersedes everything. And they even discussed that if this should go through, then anything that's more restrictive than that from some of the other municipalities would go away. But what they want to do is they feel that if they can start with the texting and they can get that through the entire state, that's a good first step, and then they move on to other areas. There was a lot of objection to the cell phone use. So that, you know, you've got 91 municipalities to deal with, so they're trying to make everybody happy, which is not really going to happen, but they're doing their best. And number 17 was recommended.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes?
You're reading off numbers, and we don't know what number 17 is.
You have in the packet, yes, each one is numbered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look in your packet. Each one of the resolutions that's in your packet has a number on it.
Mayor? What would you think about us joining in on 6, 7, those are HERF, and then 10 and 11, the state parks and the GATA, those are all restoration of funds that have been swept or otherwise taken from cities. And we, you know, if we put our name on those, how would you feel about that?
6 and 7?
And 10 and 11 also.
I think 6 and 7 is an easy one. I think everybody was pretty much in agreement on those. I don't remember any kind of negative discussion on that. That was the easiest one. And what was the other one?
10 and 11, the state parks and the GATA. And you said they changed the GATA thing to not be 20 million, so.
Right, not locked in with the sweep. Both were recommended.
They're
I don't
both
have any problem with.
important to
I was in
our
favor of both of them.
Okay.
So that's okay. If everyone else is in agreement.
I would move then that Fountain Hills join the effort for Resolution 6, 7, 10, and 11 as they go forward.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay, are there any others that, and like I said, each one of these is in your packet, and they're all numbered.
The other thing I wanted to ask about was that there were a couple that had to do with public safety retirement, and I think last year when we were doing this, we actually had some staff reporting. I couldn't remember at what point it was where we actually heard from staff whether they thought something was good or not. So maybe after it all kind of filters through, if staff saw anything that was alarming, I would hope that they would let us know. And I also wanted to mention that I know that you heard that the state is possibly in line to have to restore $800,000 or $800 million to perhaps over $1 billion to the education K-12 because of the lawsuit that just was, they haven't come up with the figure. And then just yesterday, I saw that the University of Phoenix Stadium, which was funded partly with rental car surcharges or whatever to the tune of $150 million, may land in the state's lap also. So I think all of these things will be challenging, but I'm still happy to put our name on the efforts.
Okay. And most of these that were recommended, they're all going to be recommended on with all of the questions and comments that everybody had. So probably a lot of these are going to change, and maybe some of them are just going to be dropped. But I think they were a lot more careful today. This session, in the ones that they chose things that they thought really could go through. They weren't just putting things on that they would really like, but they figured it didn't have a chance. And the league did a good job of giving us information. And just the last few, the healthcare professionals, that went through. The 19, 20, and 21 were all grouped together, and the league is going to push for tort reform on those. And they added residency to medical schools on number 19. Both staff recommendations from the league went through. Number 2, they asked for a lot more instances of how they could streamline, so they weren't satisfied with some of the things that the league had presented. So anyway, that's it. It was a very long meeting, and it's very hard to get a lot of people to agree, and I think getting 91 people to agree is going to be even tougher. So any others? If anyone's interested in...
Mayor, if we could get a copy of that document, that would be helpful.
Yes, actually, I had made this up and with Shauna, and she was supposed to leave everybody copies.
Okay, thank you.
So we do
Mayor?
have them right. You can do them. Okay.
Sorry to prolong this, but I do have a question about the census one, and I would hope that we could get some input from our staff somehow on that one, because we could either be really hurt by that or really helped by that.
Yeah, and that was actually one that I spoke up on because Maricopa has already done a mid-decade census, and they, of course, have increased their population. And we asked them how much it cost, and they said $500,000. So Gilbert is expecting that their population's up, so is Chandler. So the problem is if everybody does the mid-decades and we don't, we just have to guess. I mean, we could, even if we went up a little bit in population, the money it's going to cost to do the study, that's going to be something that staff's going to have to look at and decide. But if everybody does it, we may be locked in and have to do it, because that's how they're going to divide up the state shared revenue. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. Nope. Okay, then that's it. That's it for that, and we'll have the big meeting at the league, and then everybody will find out what's going on to the legislature, and then the league, of course, will keep us all informed, and will still have their weekly meetings bringing us up to date on everything that goes along. Now, do we have anything? Ken, do you have anything else?
Only to point out 4th of July celebration.
That's right, 4th of July.
And we called for requests for proposals for the Shea project this week.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we'll have that back in front of you in the first meeting in August.
Okay. Anything else from any members of the
Mayor,
council?
I do.
Yes? Okay.
In the vein of the 4th of July, and I wasn't at the last meeting, and I know there was some discussion about this. I went to Southern California. Actually, I got to see some of the effects of the significant wildfires that they've had out there. And I have some very grave concerns about our risks out here in Fountain Hills, this being now an opportunity to now use fireworks out here. And recently, I know we had 2 structure fires that kind of stretched our fire department thin. Certainly, they responded and they did a commendable job, and you know, it's great that we have them out here. However, I have some concerns the 4th of July if, you know, there's multiple fires in some of the washes, and, you know, with the fire trucks and us relying on the, obviously the agreements that we have with the Rio Verde and Fort McDowell, whether they're available or not. I know there was some question about Fort McDowell's availability more recently when we had these 2 structure fires. And I'm very disappointed that the legislature has really pushed on our town that we now have to allow fireworks to be used out here. It's like putting a loaded gun on the bureau and having children in the house and just waiting to see if something happens. And I would hope and encourage everyone to go to the 4th of July event that's going to be down at the fountain, and encourage everyone to make the conscious decision not to use the consumer fireworks in town, not put us at risk. We certainly can't afford a fire, and I know our fire chief is still here, and I know we're at, I think, extreme fire risk of fire. Is that correct, Chief? I see a head nodding back there. So, Chief, if you could just, I know everybody's tired, but just really briefly, if you could just give some words about this and what the risks are right now.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman Elke. Thanks for those kind words about the fire and about how it stretched us out. It's absolutely correct. And we do have some concerns about the 4th. We've talked about them a little bit. You know, we have some disappointments about what the legislature did. Certainly it put us at more risk, and it's going to, but they didn't consult with us, unfortunately. What we're doing is we're staffing up for the 4th. Rural Metro is going to be paying for some additional staffing, as well as one of the event organizers is going to help pay for some of the staffing, so we can fully staff all of our equipment. And like you said, we'll just be encouraging people to enjoy the fireworks at the fountain, and hopefully they'll make that choice and be extremely careful, because we are extreme fire danger.
And I understand, will there be a fire truck down at the fountain park during the event?
We'll actually have probably one of our pumpers and both of our brush trucks will be fully staffed at the fountain.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely.
And I think we had a long discussion on this at our last meeting when we talked about the fireworks. So, okay, if there's,
2 things. One is, yes.
nobody wants to go home today.
I'm sorry, but
Go ahead.
I have to say that, you know, I saw Andrew at his other family this week. I was over in Avondale for an event for Mayor Marie Lopez Rogers, who is becoming a county supervisor, so she stepped down. And as you know, she was the chair of MAG and also the head of the National League of Cities and Towns. And just when they introduced some of the folks that were there, I just wanted to say Fountain Hills got a shout out for the furthest one, the person who came from the furthest place, so. We're everywhere.
Wow, okay. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Everybody have a great summer. Won't see you all till August.
You know, we should never.
Aye.
Buddy?